Good evening and welcome to The Script. I am your host, Isaac Paul, and this is the Unfiltered, Unscripted, and Unapologetically Real. Each week, The Script dives headfirst into the stories shaping our lives, from the headlines lighting up your feed to the love dramas unfolding in your DMs, powered by real talk and raw perspective. This live experience blends culture, commentary, and community with the pulse of what matters now. Whether it's politics, relationships, or the internet's latest hot mess, we're breaking it down all with insight, humor, and just enough side eye. This isn't just a show, it's your front row seat to the conversation you didn't know you needed. Now, before we jump in, I want to take a moment to shout out our incredible partners at blackdoctor.org. Now, what is blackdoctor.org? They are the leading health and wellness platform dedicated to the Black community. With over 2.6 million followers, they've created space for culture and credibility collide, delivering health news, expert advice, and lifestyle content that speaks directly to our lived experiences. I'm proud to collaborate with them and to bring you all the script on an even wider audience, because these conversations matter, right? And whether you mix or when you mix purpose with real talk, powerful things happen. So whether you're tuning in on Facebook, YouTube, now Instagram and TikTok, or catching the replay, we appreciate you rocking with us. Also rocking with blackdoctor.org, where we are taking care of ourselves. You know, we are, we also understand that it starts with knowledge, right? It starts with knowledge, it starts with community and real connection. Now, I've got a very, very, very special guest this evening. Where do I begin? You know what? Let's go ahead and just dive right into some of the specifics, right? Because tonight I am joined by someone who brings insight, purpose, and perspective to every conversation. He's a longtime friend and he's a returning guest. George G. Tolbert is a dynamic business development strategist, a passionate nonprofit fundraiser, and a seasoned financial educator. His work in the nonprofit sector is all about creating real change, connecting missions to resources, and building strategic partnerships that expand impact. But that's just one side of this game. George also works closely with healthcare professionals to help them protect and grow their wealth, providing a tailored financial solutions that speak directly to the unique demands of the medical field. Whether he's helping organizations thrive or empowering individuals to secure their financial futures, George leads with heart, integrity, and intention. Y'all show some love and welcome my brother, George Tolbert, to the show. George, listen, brother, it's not a whole lot I can't say about you, man. You know, the last couple of times that you've been on here, man, we've had some great conversations. And tonight, I've got a lot of exciting things for us to talk about, man. How are you doing, brother? What's going on?
I'm doing phenomenal. Look, man, I got to figure out, that's got to be like the Chat GPT description of my bio. Because I was sitting here like, yo, who is this guy?
Who is that? Who is that boy? What happened to that boy?
Right. Yeah.
Yo, so what's going on with you, man? Where do we begin, man? Let's start with an update, man. Like, anything new going on in your world, man? What's popping, brother?
Man, yeah, we got some real exciting things coming in the pipeline, especially with these digital courses that are coming out to help train nonprofit leaders that are currently in the game of raising money or leading nonprofits, as well as those who are desiring to start their nonprofits. I recorded a 6-session training, as well as an additional module that talks about financial strategies for the nonprofit leader themselves. Because a lot of times people are so passionate about the cause they lead that they don't even focus on like an end game, like a retirement plan or anything like for themselves. So I brought in my partner, Ty Parker, to come in and lead that session. But the other 6 of me just dropping as many nuggets as I've been blessed and fortunate to have in my hands to share, to figure out how we can help other people coming. So look for that. That's coming out in the top of August. Marketing team has told me that that's going to be dropping out soon. So I'm real excited about that one.
Okay, yeah. Cool. But I'm glad to hear that. Listen, so you already know, man, like we got a lot to talk about, right? So we're going to go ahead and we just going to start off with something that's for the culture, right? Because we are heavy hip hop heads. right?
Absolutely.
And this was a conversation that we was gonna have last week,
Right.
but the stars didn't align, which I'm actually glad that it didn't, because it gave me even more time to listen to the album. I feel like I listened to it, enjoyed it, but I needed to absorb it a little bit more, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and set this up, okay? So after 16 years, the Clips is back with a new album called Let God Sort 'Em Out, produced entirely by Pharrell. But this isn't just a hip hop drop. This is a reunion between two brothers with a complicated past. So tonight we're not just talking about the beats and the bars, we're talking about legacy, forgiveness, and what it takes to come back, whether together, and just like all the different elements that kind of shape you on your own journey, right? And we're gonna do a bit of an album listening, right? So I know I'm gonna probably get flagged on some copyright issues because I don't care, right? Because we got to do it thoroughly. I feel like I got to play a little bit of it also.
You got to.
And who better to have than you? So let's start with how you felt about it. What's your initial take on this Clips album?
Man, short and sweet, dude. I literally felt a full breath of fresh air. Like it was like literally sitting in the oxygen chamber that you didn't know you need to sit in. And you've been dying of a lack of oxygen for 20 years of hip hop nonsense and didn't know you needed to inhale this for a second.
Right. Okay. So let's take it old school because we old school.
Yep.
Let's go from the mics. How many mics would you give it?
Oh man, wow, we back in the source. Yo, this is a strong 5. This is definitely a strong, and this is one of those strong 5s that like you can argue with your relative in the comment section about whether or not you disagree with me or not, because like you have to respect. And I had a friend of mine tell me, it's a rapper out of Chicago named Breathe Easy. He was like, when it was getting ready to come out, he was kind of on edge because he was like, I don't know, man. A couple of our hip hop heroes have literally let us down, so we don't know which way this is gonna go. And I told him, I said, look, Breathe, if anybody is gonna hold it down for us, I believe it's gonna be the Clips. And the moment that Malice went from No Malice to Malice, I knew right then that this was gonna be that album. It's an AOD for sure. Album of the year, hands down. Yeah.
Okay. Now, let me go ahead and say this right now for all the people that are watching it live, specifically through two platforms. If you're watching it on YouTube or if you're watching us through Facebook, you have the ability to comment and interact with us directly. And when you do so, I can actually share your comments directly on the screen like this, right? What's going on, Ursuline? She's saying good evening, everyone. Right, we've got Lavalia. What's going on, Lavalia? And then also Casey is watching from the good state of Arizona. What's going on? Would she just say, how many total mics are there? Good question, Casey. So for those of you all that are not familiar with the mic system, 5 mics. 5 mics is considered a classic album, right? But anything over 3.5 is worth listening generally, right? Like that's a good play. 4, now we're going into good. This is a good, solid album. Like 4 mics, that's like a solid B. Now, once you get into 4.5, it could be considered great. 4.5 is considered great. There are a lot of great albums that are 4.5s. 5 mics, that is considered a classic album. And throughout history, there have only been, a handful of albums that have really gotten 5 mics. And so that was always what every MC, every artist wanted back in the days of the source, when the source was the hip hop Bible, and so I had to go off of the mic because, once again, man, I mean, that's who we are, right? So, but no, G, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm thinking that I'm gonna probably almost have to go 5 also. I think that at first I was somewhere leaning between 4 to 4.5. And that's why it's like, it was good that we didn't do it last week, because I think that, when I first read it through, there's always stages of how you listen to an album, right? And I've always been someone that, to me, what I consider to be the hierarchy of a hit is like beats, then the hook, ironically enough, because that's what catches you, and then it's the lyrics. Now you can give me beats in bars and I'm gonna enjoy it, but then I can't really consider that to be a classic, right? Because it won't always have that staying power, that lasting power, in terms of like where you just really feel like this thing is complete. But once you see all three of those elements combined, that's always when, to me, an album kind of goes into that rare space. And when I first played it, I was obviously loving the beats. It felt hard, right? I knew that they was delivering bars. I think at first, because I was so into the bars, I think I kind of downplayed the hooks. And I don't know if I was listening for like chicks singing on it. You know what I'm saying? Like if I was going for the old standard of how albums used to be put together, where, in order for it to be balanced, you had to have a like an R&B feature on it, right? Like, something for the ladies, right?
That's
What I
right.
mean? And
Right.
that ain't what this was. This was
Nah.
a little different, right? This was he made this album for us, if we're gonna be honest, right? I feel like he made it for a specific generation, like primarily like 70s and 80s babies. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Now, I think everybody can enjoy it, but you really have to be into the classic sound of like what we would consider golden era hip hop.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, like, even from the title, right? You could tell from the title it was going to bring a lot of aggression. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you tell somebody let God sort them out, the first part of that is typically kill them and let God sort them out. Meaning that we're gonna let God decide who's good and who's bad at the end of this. But just know you're about to get this work. And so,
right.
Again, like the transition from No Malice to Malice did it for me. It let me know that he was back. He was gonna be authentically raw and real himself, lyrically, as he always does. And Pusha, being the younger brother that, like typical younger brothers are, was extremely impetuous and extremely going for everybody's neck with zero FGs, like didn't really care like who got what. So he was just sitting back there with a machine gun, just spraying lyrics at everybody. While his brother has always been, like, to me, the technical surgeon, with his lyrics and making sure that you heard that. And so I think that's why a lot of people, as they assess it, they've been saying Malice just like literally went in and killed on this one.
Yeah, it was good to have him back. You know what I mean? I know that he stepped out, and he did so because of faith reasons, right? Like when he just felt his life going in a different direction, and was one of those few people that had the capacity to be able to step away from the game completely, and really didn't look back, which was always so surprising because, I mean, Pusha stayed 10 toes down, right? Like he ain't went nowhere in the last,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, because what's it been? It's been 16 years. It's been 16 years that he's been out. But Pusha, not only rocking with Kanye, has released albums. He's been deep. Like, a lot of people don't know it. Pusha T is who created the McDonald's jingle,
right?
Loving it, which that to me is ironically enough, that's probably paid him the most out of everything, right?
Hands
From
down.
Which is crazy to just let you know how high-minded these individuals were. If I, full transparency, I think if there was a critique that I've had of Pusha throughout the years, it's never been bars, it's never been lyrical prowess, dexterity. To me, it's been content, right? I always felt that, he loved the coke rhymes, right? Like he loved the drug dealer rhymes, and I always felt like there's only so much of that I can take before it just starts to feel a little like over the top or convoluted, right? Where it's almost like, okay, you are no longer on the block, and I know you are experiencing things that are beyond this now. And to me, I get a little frustrated with artists that don't take us on the journey with them, right? Where it's almost like I'm experiencing something that's very different, but I'm going to keep serving you up the exact same meal. That's been one of the biggest critiques that I've had of Tyler Perry. Big fan of not only what he's accomplished, but the opportunities that he provides. but I always feel like, okay, I know that your mind is in another dimension right now. But then every time that you sit down to create a movie and to give us content, to give us art, you have not grown or developed much. And I'd even go as far as to say you might have even regressed since your very first showing of, what was it? The Diary of a Mad Black Woman, which I actually thought was a pretty good movie. I saw that at the theater, and I remember thinking in the theater, damn, this is okay. He coming from the plays and he going here. If this is where he at right now, oh, look out, Hollywood. And it's almost like he just plateaued. And it's like that's all he get. It once in a while he even goes down a little bit, right? Then he might go back up. He's like, I'm gonna keep giving you this. And my thing is, it's like, at what point do we evolve, right? Like, Jay-Z might give you a couple of bars where he'll, like remind you of some stuff that happened on the block. But it's like, bro, you in a whole different stratosphere right now. So you're supposed to be talking about Hugh Blows. You're supposed to be talking about Basquiat. You're supposed to be talking about the business deals. And to me, as a consumer of the art, it feels like it forces me to elevate in order to be able to get, to that space. And I know everybody don't see it the way I do. Some people are like, nah, if this is the thing I like, then I want you to keep giving me that, time and time again. But like when it comes to me, I ain't never been on the block. So there's only so much dope dealing that I can hear before I'm just like, all right, this all sounds the same to me. You know what I'm saying?
Let me interject for a second. Because like I think that your sentiment is shared amongst a lot of people when it comes to the clips, and specifically Pusha T, right? I think that one of the things that he has always toted in a arrogant way is he's cocaine's Dr. Seuss, right? And so like when you call yourself that, it sounds funny, right? But the reality is what you're saying is that you have a ambidextrous way, and this is just the way I see it. I see a guy who has an ambidextrous way to highlight his past and reflect on what it was like. And no matter how many times you hear it, he still is going to flip it in a way that shows that he has a high level of mixing drug talk with business terms. So, for example, that's why on the album you got songs like called FICO and EBITDA and whatnot. Like here you now have taken the drug game off the block, and you gave yourself a Harvard level MBA, just even knowing how to mix and master and interweave those different terms together like that. That's why I think it's genius to me. Everybody can't do that. Now, if you look at somebody like a Lil Wayne, and like you still saying the same things that you were saying when you were 14, and it lyrically doesn't sound anything like different close to what you were saying. Like it's not like you're taking your relationship with women and relating it to something now elevated or higher. I think that's where we can give the clips a little bit of grace. Not a lot, but we can just kind of, if you want to compare it and contrast it, I think that's the one little small caveat that you can interject.
Yeah. And now, to be clear though, I didn't feel that way with this album, right? And I don't know if it is. I think it's a couple of different things happening. I will give a lot of that credit to Malice, right? In his involvement, in a sense of he's gonna, because he is mentally and spiritually in a different space, he's going to now inject that. Which, to be very honest, now if Pusha wanted to still be, cocaine's Dr. Seuss, then now it doesn't feel like I'm being overwhelmed by it, because now we've got balance, right? Now
and I think that's what happened.
You know what I mean?
That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. Because like Malice, to your point, literally adds like a moral weight and giving his verses this feel of there's a spiritual reckoning that comes with the consequences of the drug game. So his stories, when you listen to his bars in this album, they're more like, I used to have your girl, what do you say, like spun together like spaghetti or something like that. And then now he then like says something else that's like, but now, I'm doing this with my wife and family, or I'm doing this as a man with with a different outlook. You know,
Right.
I think you're right that malice is the other side of the coin that gives them the balance that Pusha needed, you know, to balance them out, make them make sense at this point in their life. Because they're both like late 40s, 50s at this point. You're right.
Right.
It makes no sense for a person at that age to still be talking about flipping keys. Like, we don't buy that at this point. You cut the whole album at Louis Vuitton's factories. Like, you can't make me believe that happened on Pharrell's watch.
Absolutely. All right. So listen, because you know we gonna go through it just a little bit. Okay. You know, we ain't gonna run through the whole album. You know, we might even just tap into some of our favorites. You know, I think this first one we gotta let ride out though, because this one really is the one that I think has been grabbing a lot of people's attention, just purely off of just how much heart, right, was in this song. So we're gonna let this first one ride out, and then from there we can just kind of pick and choose which ones, you know, we like.
All right.
Oh, hold on one second. Look at this. Look, here's what's so funny is my son. There we go.
Lost in emotion, mama's youngest. Trying to navigate life without my compass. Some experience death and feel numbness. But not me, I felt it all and couldn't function. Seeing you that day, telling you my plan, but I was leaving you that day. It was in God's hands. It was in Elon's waiting to get with me. On my way to Texas, that's when Virginia hit me. And I realized in that instant, our last conversation, you was against it. Told you I was going to church for Thanksgiving. I heard what I wanted to hear.
Oh shit, I'm sorry, you can't hear it? Are you able to hear this?
I can now. It went out again.
Okay, so hold on. I'm hearing that you guys are having issues hearing it. So hold on one second, y'all. Let me see. I'm wondering if they stopped us playing it. Like I said, I knew there was a possibility that they might have thrown me some static or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to see if they're allowing me to stream it. Sometimes when new album comes out, they'll allow people to go ahead and stream it, and then other times like they'll go ahead and like cut out all of the copyright issues or whatever. So if that's the case, then it very well might be preventing me from doing it. Hold on one second. I'm gonna see if I can rectify it. I want you all to let me know if you all are hearing this when I do this again. Let me try this one more time. So I apologize, y'all. Hold on, let's see. I'm just sitting over here just nodding my head, and folks is like,
Yeah,
man,
you
what's
were
going
going
on,
in.
man?
I saw you nodding, but I
Oh,
thought
listen, because I mean, look, I'm over here jamming. You know what I'm saying? All right, hold on 1 second, y'all. I apologize about that. I thought I had it rectified. Let me see. All right, let me try this one more again. All right, let's see. Okay, yeah. All right. So I want y'all to tell me if y'all hear this.
Lost in emotion, mama's youngest. Trying to navigate life without my compass. Some
Y'all hearing
experience
it?
death and feel numbness. But not me, I felt it all and couldn't function. Seeing you that day, telling you my plans, but I was leaving you that day. It was in God's hands. It was in Elon's waiting to get with me. On my way to Texas, that's when Virginia hit me. And I realized in that instant, our last conversation, you was against it. Told you I was going to church for Thanksgiving. I heard what I wanted to hear, but didn't listen. You said you told Gene that Buck needed forgiveness. I see you with the D's and stuff, both for fridges. You even told Dad you wished y'all never split it. See, you were checking boxes, I was checking my missions. Saying you was tired, but not ready to go. Basically was dying without letting me know. I love you, Naj. Hate that he won't remember you. Two things that break my heart is when November's due. And T follows you. Now mind you, Didi calls you. Gene finds you. Was that your vision? Precision. While I'm reminiscing, it all hits different miles. The birds don't sing, yeah. The birds don't sing. The birds don't sing. The birds don't sing. They're screeching back. Your car was in the driveway, I knew you were home. By the third knock, a chill ran through my bones. The way you miss mama, I guess I should've known. Chivalry ain't dead, you ain't let her go alone. Found you in the kitchen, scriptures in the den. Half-written text that you never got to send. Combing through your dresser drawer, where do I begin? Posting noted Bible quotes, were you preparing in? I can hear your voice now, I can feel your presence. Asking should I rap again, you gave me your blessing. The way you spelled it out, there's an L in every lesson. Boy, you owe it to the world, let your mess become your message. Shared you with my friends, the pops they never had. You lived for our fishing trips, damn I had a dad. Mine taught discipline, mine taught structure. Mine didn't mind when he had to pull a double. Mine worked overtime, smiled through the struggle. Cause mine wouldn't let us feel what he had to suffer. See, mine made sure he had every base covered. So imagine his pain finding base in the cupboard. Words don't sing if the words don't sting. Your last few words in my ears still ring. You told me that you love me, it was all in your tone. I love my two sons with the code to your phone. Now you're home.
Okay, so like I think that right there is what set the album on the course that it ultimately went, right? And like why so many people like I mean I've been watching a lot of people talk about this album, and you know you had grown men that was talking about like, yo man, like that song brought them to tears. You know what I mean? Like anybody that has experienced loss, you know, because you know, as you heard through the verses, it was like they both lost both of their parents within the span of a few months of one another. You know what I mean? And you know, it's such a fascinating way, just going off of what we were just talking about a moment ago, right? As it relates to growth, you know, that you would be bold and begin your album this kind of a way, right? Like in a very counter, what might feel like a counterintuitive way. You know what I'm saying? Where you're just like, okay, we're actually gonna hit you straight off the top with emotion. We're not going, you know, a lot of times people try to hit you with the banger, you know, or they try to hit you with something to kind of ramp you up. But this actually set a very different tone to the remainder of the album. You know what I'm saying? And it felt adultish. You know?
Yeah.
You could tell that the clips was adulting. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I was
Yeah.
just like, all right, I get it. You know.
Now that's the theme that you can see is that like the majority of their most revealing lines didn't come from boasting, but more self-awareness. And so throughout, like you said, this first track, I was listening to them on the Joe Budden podcast, and that was the question that all of them asked is like, how could you even get through a song this heavy, and so revealing? And the reality is for them that their overall adult nature that they get to show up in now is their ability to confront their past and parallel it with where they are as men now, and then how they're going to proceed going forward in the future. And that I think is a call that typically hip hop doesn't leave you with many life lessons that you can really hold on to. But when you see two guys like come to grips with who they were and what they used to be about, and then now they're making a pivot, it definitely shows a certain level of maturity that you can appreciate.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, because I saw a post, and it was funny because at first I thought this was just like some random content creator, right? And she wasn't a black woman. She looked like she might have either been Middle Eastern or Indian. I wasn't 100% certain. But she is on the Angela Yee radio show, or I don't know if it's a podcast or a radio show. I had to find out that this is who it was, because at first I thought she was just a rando, but she had made a post where it was something like, "Hey, so I'm just curious, like, how my uncles feel about this dad rap," or something like that, or whatever. She called it dad rap, right?
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
I knew she was being playful, but
Yeah.
people were not finding that shit funny in the comments. Okay,
No, because
especially coming from a non-black person. Oh,
not only
they were
that,
not
man, but
playing.
like it's real, man. Like a lot of us right now are facing not just our own mortality, whether it becomes to like you hit the 40s and you start being injured. You know what I'm saying? To now some of us are burying our parents. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so we like, nah, this ain't funny. Like this is making me think in a way that I wasn't ready for. And it goes back to our last discussion when we were talking about Kendrick and Drake going at each other.
Right.
Some people use this music as real therapy so that they, really rely on it. And so they may have showed up to this album thinking, all right, I'm going to get that same energy that I normally get from the rest of the music that makes me feel good, makes me hype, and makes me push through. And then when they got confronted with these real life issues, they were like, oh crap, man, what is this? Somebody cutting onions? Like, what is this going on right now? I wasn't ready to shed tears. I thought I was just gonna be hype and laugh my way through another album, and this wasn't that.
So the next song, Chains and Whips, right? I know that was a song that if it like a version of it got released earlier, right? Now this version that's on the album, this is an updated version, right? Like was it that it was just Pusha's verse that came out initially?
No, from my understanding, this is the album that created the controversy that made them have to leave Def Jam. They literally, because at the time, Def Jam, of course, is going through this whole thing with Drake and his battle with Kendrick. And they just simply seem to have some trepidation behind having Kendrick show up on another album with Pusha T, knowing Pusha T's history with Drake. And they were just, in my humble opinion, being overly cautious. So they like straight didn't want him to be on the song. They went to scrap the entire song, and the clips were just like, no, we're not doing that. Like we believe in this album, this project too much, specifically this song. We'll just pick up our marbles and go home and play with another, company, and you'll just have to watch us drive from a distance.
Okay, but the reason I asked though about this is that I don't know if you remember, right? When Pusha was getting into like a battle with Jim Jones. And Jim Jones, his song was to this beat, which made me try to figure out, and that was like almost 2 years ago, because a buddy of mine sent it to me. He sent me a YouTube video, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. And when I saw the date of it, it was from 2 years ago. And so that's why I'm like, oh snap, I feel like my timeline or something must be off.
Well, that might be why Jim Jones was sending shots recently at a couple artists, talking about whatever he was on, when it came to his displeasure, and putting himself up there in the category with Nas, which I think is a whole nother bag of cocaine that he has sniffed, that I don't know where he got that from. But but like literally, it was a whole nother discussion that he was just on,
Right. Okay. So like I said, we're not gonna go through, all of the songs. But I gotta at least play the Kendrick verse off of this next song, okay? Off of Chains and Whips. Okay. So look, I'm gonna start it before it gets in there, and just give me the thumbs up if you can hear it, because I left everything how it was, but I just want to know if I'm still, if we still Gucci. Let me know if you can hear this.
All right.
Can you hear that?
We're good. So far, so good.
All right, now listen. Y'all gonna have to take my word for it.
This is culturally inappropriate.
Okay, so just y'all hear me out when I say they was getting off on this song. I'm not gonna make y'all sit through the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? I want y'all to go ahead and go to Spotify or go to your favorite, streaming space and give the entire album a spin. But I gotta at least take us to this Kendrick verse, though, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward this so I can go ahead and get to what to me is one of the coldest verses I've heard this year. Okay?
Hey, and turn it up, please.
This is nasty, okay?
Can you turn it up a little bit?
That's as loud as it's let me go.
Okay.
The cosmics, the things I seen under my eyelids, kaleidoscope dreams, murder and sirens. Let's be clear, hip hop died again. Half of my profits may go to Rakim. How many Judases that let me down? But fuck it, the West minds we right now. Therapy showed me how to open up. It also showed me how I don't give a fuck. The two-time Gemini with the genocide. I'm generous, however you want it. I'll be the gentle kind. Gentlemen and gangsters connect. The agenda of mine. Move niggas up out of here. This shit get gentrified. Heavy jeans like Genevieve's. I drop your Pentagon to show up at your gender reveal. And tell them, give me mine. I son niggas, I am the general. Where my gin and juice? Every song in the book of Genesis. Let the sonics boom. Niggas want the tea on me. Well, here's the ginger root. I generate residuals, bitch. Get off my genitals. They say I couldn't reach Gen Z. You fucking dickheads. You must be full of that ginseng. Here comes the jinx, yeah. They genetics been synthetic. Screaming they genius. A finger wave, they all fall. Niggas is Jenga. God gave me light. A good year full of free will. Trunk card, tell me not to spare your life.
Come on, man. What are we doing out here, man? What are we doing? What are we doing? Yo, that see, in the moments, there's certain songs that either make you want to fight, make you want to sell some drugs, like just make you just like you become a different person. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, you just want to beef with somebody out of just for no reason.
For no reason.
That song make me want to beef with somebody, bro. I was like, you know what? I got to get back in the gym and shit. You know what I mean? That's gonna be my bench press song right there.
Right,
where you just like blackout. What are we doing, dog? What are we doing?
I love it, man.
Goosebumps right now,
dude. There's little subtle things, man, that like they put in there, even with the person, whoever they got to drop in that. This is culturally inappropriate. Like every time that came in, it was right at a moment where the lyrics would hit a nerve. So like you even know this is gonna either offend the people who's gonna listen, or it's a specific person that I'm shooting at right now. And I want them to feel this that I'm about to get at them right now lyrically.
Right. Okay, so listen, y'all. For anybody that obviously is watching the live, man, I want to thank you all for being patient with me. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and blame someone else other than myself for the sound issues that we've been having. Okay, I'm going to blame my almost 2-year-old son. Okay, because I had everything set up and I've got it queued up, but my son listens to my Spotify when he's in the car. Right. And so because it's tapped into my account, when I was first playing it, it was trying to shoot it to different locations. And I forgot I had to shoot it to the web player in order for the sound to come through. So, you know, when you're solo producing a show, this type of shit that happens, you know what I mean? But I appreciate y'all for being patient, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I'm over here jamming because I can hear it through my speakers and shit. I'm out here like, this
yeah. Nah, we over here like a bunch of senior citizens. Like, what? What'd he say?
So apologize about that. Apologies, yo. Straight up, man. But no. So that I felt like that song, like the beat, I give the beat. Everything about that song to me is dope. It's the beat, the verses, hook, all of it. You know what I'm saying? And then to immediately come off of that first one with that, I think that's when everybody was like, oh, okay. That's the kind of album we get for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you have arguably the hottest in the game right now, that's giving you, what was that, like damn near 24 bars or something? You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, dog. What are we doing?
Easy. That was like a ultra combo on an old school Sega Genesis game right there, man. Like we weren't ready.
Yo, straight up. Okay, so were there any other notable songs on here where you was just like, yo, okay, like that one right there is my joint? I'm just curious to know. I mean, we obviously love them all, right? But I'm just curious.
Mine is So Be It.
Any standouts?
So Be It for me is like one of the biggest standouts to me.
Okay, hold on. No, all right, let's go ahead and give it a little. Just we gotta let it breathe a little bit. So Be It is the one for you. Here we go.
So Be It.
16,000 square, 8 million up there, 2 million down here. When I was born, grandmama could see it. I be Bentley driven and very strategic. RM sleeve, no diamonds are needed. Floors are heated, so be it, so be it. Fucking with P, get something to meet you. Your soul don't like your body, we help you free it. Then we wait for TMZ to leak it. It ain't no secret, so be it, so be it. Smoke. So be it, so be it. Smoke. So be it. CLIP, SEFB, A-Ball LV. I can show you how to bust a brick if you let me. I'm on a gram like confetti. Switch is ready. She leaning on Celine cause she ain't stepping in Giuseppe. Catch a $150 like each Pirelli. I got 8 of them, call me Andretti. If I'm not in the telly, selling the Yeti, then I'm twirling your bitch like she in spaghetti. Heavy, circle back and come and get this Kelly. And your ears too if you want a blue like belly. Lot of jetting, Prada bedding, 911s. I'm the who's who with what's what. Papa heaven. Fuck around and get your body traced trying to test me. Cause niggas that I'm with like to draw when it's sketchy. If they catch me, don't forget me. Resurrect me. Buy a dog tag the same place that they forget me. Ski.
This is culturally inappropriate.
Yeah, man. Come on, man. What we doing, man? What we doing out here? What we doing?
Come on, man.
What are we doing? What are we doing, man?
Bro, like, you cannot just like listen to that and just be like, I'm not impressed. Like,
it's so everybody that I've heard that have been speaking about it up to this point, are hip hop aficionados, right? Like that is their thing. And so I think that the real hip hop heads, the purists, they love it. Now, I haven't really heard the broader community talk about it yet, right? I'm going to be curious to get like what Kai Cenat thinks about it. You know what I mean? Like those type of cats or whatever. And not that it will make it any less dope. I think what I'm curious to know is if this resonates for us because it is an elite hip hop album that has a classic sound. Now, I'm saying classic, but I personally feel it's timeless. I feel it has a timeless sound, but art is subjective. So this is one of those things where it's like I can't really call whether or not this is just universally dope or if it's just dope to the real niggas, right? Like, I mean, I'm just keeping what it is. I'm gonna call it what it is, okay? I don't placate to this new breed that tries to convince me that drill is the best thing. Nah, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. You know what I mean? I saw. Oh man, I should have played it for you. I had a dude, and I actually like this content creator. Matter of fact, I'm going to find it so I can show it to you later. And he compared artists like from our history, like Art Deco and like Van Gogh, like people that did like Impressionism and stuff like that, to drill artists, and saying how like in their time that art form wasn't considered elite, that painting style wasn't considered elite. But we look at it today and we revere it. And it wasn't that those painters could not paint differently. It was that this was a way that they chose to create art. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, listen, man, and he's an articulate brother. I was like, it feels like a bit of a reach. I give you props because you did a dope ass connection, but nigga, you stretching farther than Mr. Fantastic for you to compare Van Gogh to Chief Keef, which is literally what he did. And I'm from Chicago, so I ain't gonna hate on Chief Keef, but we are no. Now we ain't gonna do that. Now I'm gonna give artists an opportunity to do what it is that they do, and I don't even downplay the different forms of art, right? Because I try to keep my ear to the street, but I can't pretend like it takes the same amount of effort to create something like this as it does, when you just kind of dialing it in and just kind of vibing on the beat. Like, I mean, it's cool to vibe a little bit, but nah, this ain't you bad going in.
I'm gonna tell you what Kai Sanat said about it.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I didn't see a reaction video for the whole album. But he has a video where he's listening to So Be It on his Twitch, right?
Okay.
And all he could say was, "Oh, it's a tough music video." And that's all he had. And that lets me know two things. Number one, visual representation of content is paramount to this generation. They've got to see it visually to even connect. The second thing is that the bars went way over his head. Like the lyrics were just so top tier that his brain just automatically went to the visual content. Like he couldn't grasp what he was listening to. And so I don't expect my 15-year-old to go inside of the Art Institute in Chicago and be able to critically analyze a painting that was painted decades ago. Because I don't think he has the emotional and mental bandwidth to even connect to see why it's important. But I believe that as he grows over time, he can begin to appreciate art. And one thing he does ask me, and this is when I told you we had like a whole TED talk about, I think it was Point of View was the one we no, it was Chains and Whips, and then Point of View, POV, were the two that we like really had a deep discussion about. And it's because there were lyrics that he actually caught that he then asked me, like, what does that mean? Like, what is he saying? And so I don't expect everyone to be that aware of this type of rap. Because culture has kind of given us so many milkshakes that it takes way too long to chew the steak, and they just end up spitting it out.
That's real. Yeah. That's real. And now, to the point of what you were saying about the visual aspect, right? Now I will admit that even in our generation, because I kind of feel like we were the ones that really popularized the music video, and so that was incredibly important when we came up. You know, if it was like a Hype Williams joint, you know what I'm saying, like that was enough to make you not only want to hear the music, but sometimes if the visual was dope enough, and because you like what was going on, you know, there's certain songs, there's certain artists, certain songs, certain types of art where you have to live with it before you can really appreciate it, right? Like it's not meant to be, it's not point of purchase, right? You don't just look at it and immediately go, oh yeah, boom. You know, it's not transactional. It's like, right, you got to give it a chance. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like there are certain artists, because they've already won us over, we give them that chance. You know, Kanye is that person where each album he was giving you something very different, to whereas he earned that from us to say, you know what, I'm gonna give this a couple. Because I remember when 808s and Heartbreaks first dropped.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
They were kind of shitting on it at first. You know Absolutely. What I'm saying? Yeah. And the moment you live with it, you know, because remember his mother had just passed, and so we was thinking like, damn, he depressed, man. Yeah, this ain't it. And then you just kept letting it ride, and you like doom 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 doom. Yeah, and you just like, hey, this is actually
you ready to go hunt. Like by the time the end of Love Lockdown went on, you ready to go hunt a lion.
Right. So, you know, I feel like that's what good art does. We don't always give it that, but if certain things can hook you in, or, you know, if the company that's pushing it has enough power and strength, they can get it played enough times to where it can kind of grow over you. Now, all that being said, this album, though, it kind of grabs you by the throat because the beats are so nasty, right? Like you can't listen to it and not give you a, you know what I mean? Like unless you're listening to it on shitty speakers, that's the only way that, you know, if you in the whip, there ain't no way you in the whip and you turn this up and you not ready to go run down on somebody. You know what I'm saying? You thinking in the back of your mind, like, man, who owe me money? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
All right. Look. Any other standouts before I play my favorite and we move on? Any other standouts?
The only other one I could think of off the top was POV. Like POV really hit hard for me as well.
Hold on, let me see what we got here. POV, because I'm trying to remember exactly which one. Because you know, like I said, I'm still in the just loving them phase.
Yeah.
And let me see where we at. Oh, okay. Oh, all right, here we go.
POV kilos in my mind back. Take Amtrak down south, then she flies back. My cadet has ponytails tied back. I just hit 6 mil behind Tyvek. They content create, I despise that. I create content, then they tries that. Run these Jews, there's rules I don't buy back. I've topped all these lists, where's my prize? All I see is 60-day stars and 20-year thousandaires. Not enough shopping, whole lot of browsing theirs. My reinvention, I know you thinking how's it fair? You stream kings, but you never fit a crowd in there. Supreme team parallels when the powder clears. I seen things that I'm still not even proud to share. You Zeus network niggas, you hear me loud and clear. Get these 5,500 to host the niggas out of here. Sand colored Rolls Royce, we like Saudis here. The only Audi here is driven by my owl pair. Ghost face with the wrist, bird falconer. Willie Falcone, trunk full of talcum here. Shotgun with your ex feels like Malcolm's near. Send a hit through a text, ain't no shouting here. Bypass MIA, too much crowd in there. I spent summers with connects, love that mountain air. POV kilos in my mind back. Take Amtrak down south, then she flies back. My cadet has ponytails tied back. I just hit 6 mil behind Tyvek. They content create, I despise that. I create content, then they tries that. Run these Jews, there's rules I don't buy back. I've topped all these lists, where's my prize at?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
this
man.
this is that rap, Isaac, that like you stop breathing while you're listening to it. Like, because it's hitting you so much that you're not getting the full oxygen delivery to your brain because the bars are just coming so quickly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna just play this one last one. You know, like I said, this hopefully, you know, this has encouraged someone that either is watching us live or that, you know, watches later to just give it a run through, man. Let it breathe. But let me tell you something, man. This one right here, when I heard this one in the whip, oh man, you know how certain things just you can't even leave the car. You know what I'm saying? I was sitting in the garage. I was just like, I ain't going nowhere. I gotta run this back a couple more times, man. I was like, oh yeah. So I'm gonna have to let this one ride.
It's always the loud mouths that can't count. The right price, I put the AR in the saint's mouth. Yeah. Talk about it. Bring all the watches and the chains out. Heat come, I'm De Niro, I got the safe house.
This is culturally inappropriate.
Surrounded by niggas with tears that don't drip. Talk about that ain't the ghost that you appear to go get. Finally got the courage, but you still a whole bitch. The rest of y'all on my 6 year ago shit. Every move intentional, the links is atypical. Like baseball and DR, you know what the stick will do.
This is culturally inappropriate.
We got the drop on your shadow. You know we can get to you. The pen to express my dreams and expertise in text I squeeze. Coke spots all over like leprosy. It's a dark spirit tucked behind the flesh you see. Got every single word of the hex I need. The death I breathe, the death I see. Looks so good on you. The coffin wood on you. Closed casket cause I'm only sick and wolves on you. Burning at a horsepower, put them hooves on you. Blow a $500,000 LV leather goods on you. We've been doing this for eons. While you thirsty trying to figure out who you can spill a tea on. I'm in coffee fields, making meals. You get the chills cause this shit is real. Now let me rip in, bow tie your surprise. The feeling that you get when you realize it was really you that died and we are so alive. Conspiracy theory, you can't believe it's us. Soul leave your body like a fentanyl rush. Dead on your back with your eyes looking up chandeliers.
This is culturally inappropriate.
Single-handedly boosted rap to its truest place. Fuck speaking candidly, I alone did rejuvenate hip-hop into its newest place. Made it cool for Grammy-nominated LPs from previous generation MCs. And that rings loud and reverberates. It's not fair to them, I'm thinking I deserve the hate. Bring it, only thing you killing is precious time. Used to clash with Decepticons, I was them deaf and blind. So cancel me before I unleash the Panther me. The Pantheon is a family, we some upstanding G's. The difference between regular spitters and bosses, my principles are, you need a glimpse of me from satellites in orbit. Take sabbaticals on avenues, break AKs on vacays when we paddle canoes. Follow the leader, Terminator, hasta la vista, man of the year, Nasir, rockin' chandeliers.
Man, let me tell you something. So full transparency, I just had an epiphany just right now. When we first started, and I said, I miscalculated the album because I felt like it was a lot of flow and not a lot of hooks. I was thinking about that song because I ran it so many times, and that song doesn't have a hook. You know what I'm saying? That I mistook the way that the entire album really felt in its totality because I probably ran that song back so many times. I was just like, oh, come on, bro. What are we doing?
Funny.
That song might as well have been 20 minutes long as far as I was concerned, man. And I was going somewhere. I just kept putting repeat, turning it up, mean mugging people in Phoenix streets while I'm
for no reason.
No reason, G. Oh man, again, gotta give them props for not making an album that's so top heavy with like features, but the ones you selected, elite. You know what I mean? Chef's kiss. You got Nas and Kendrick and Tyler, and then because you said that you watched the Joe Budden podcast, and so they was asking about like how you found these features, and he was like, well, there was a lot of people that was in Paris.
It was just in the area, yeah. You know, like
Okay,
here's
this is just some random shit. Okay.
dude, here
Bet.
if I were to ask, like, what would be your takeaway from this album? I would literally say that when you're in an era of content and algorithm chasing, the Clips are the one artist that stood firm on pure craftsmanship of quality music. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was no we trying to make a song for TikTok. We're trying to do this for for somebody to create a dance off to. It's like, look, this is who we are. Here are the bars, here are the lyrics, here's the beats. You can sit with it and digest it, cut it up into small pieces if you need to, but this is what it is. Period.
Right. Well, listen, brother. Thank you for indulging me and allowing us to start there. You know what I'm saying?
I'm always for a masterclass.
Right, with some love for coach. We had a couple of issues, some sound issues out, but I'm learning as we, because this is gonna be a segment right here. Okay, anytime some new heat drops, right? Because remember, we started it with the Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl performance, which was a culture moment, right? So it's like, this wouldn't be the script if we wasn't keeping it real as it relates to the culture.
Absolutely.
So now we're gonna make a quick shift, and now the energy is going to shift, okay? Because now we are going to call this next segment. Let me go ahead and set this up appropriately. Here we go. The debate dilemma. Okay, Mehdi Hassan versus 20 far-right conservatives. So this next one had the internet buzzing. Mehdi Hassan, sharp, unfiltered, and fearless, set across from 20 far-right conservatives in a Jubilee YouTube live debate. And while the exchange was fiery, the question remains, what's the value in debating when no one's trying to budge? Are these conversations making progress or just making noise? Let's talk about it. Now, I think I want to start this segment with, just kind of showing one of the videos that kind of gives a bit of an overview of just kind of like, what this was all about, right? So for those of you all that are not very familiar with Mehdi Hassan, he is a journalist. He is an American citizen, but was naturally an immigrant from the UK, right? Very brilliant guy. But he was on this YouTube show that now has they got a new following, right? The new thing that people do is they're like, let's have debates, right? Where it's like 1 against 20, and on the surface, it looks intriguing. But this one went left pretty quick. Okay. So let me go ahead and cue up one of these clips so that we can kind of dig into this one. Let's see what we got here. Give me 1 second while I pull it up. Okay, yeah, here we go. We'll start this one.
What to call you anymore? Conservatives, Republicans, fascists, or immigrants?
No, my parents are United States citizens.
But they're immigrants, you said.
No, they came here as immigrants. However, but
so they
I
are
want to make
immigrants.
the claim that we cannot
I came here as an immigrant. I'm an immigrant.
But at this point, when they came, the United
people aren't
States
happy with the way this is going. First, fourth, fifth, 14th, 22nd Amendments. Those are my amendments that I came with today. If you don't want to debate them, just say so.
Are you supporting like raping innocent women? Nuns, dude. Killing priests? I mean, priests don't brandish guns and kill people.
You just refuse to condemn the Nazi Holocaust, my friend. I don't think you're in a position to ask anyone any questions.
I said that one pardon against somebody.
It was 1,600 pardons. 600 of those were people charged with...
one example that you just gave me.
I can give you more. Just should I keep going?
Fine.
Shane
and I'll say the exact same thing every single time.
Then your argument will fall apart. When was the Islamic Republic of Iran founded?
1979.
When was Gaza occupied by Israel?
The very
67.
first time. 67, yeah.
So, can we do the maths together? 12 years before the Islamic Republic of Iran existed, Israel was oppressing, occupying, dispossessing the people of Gaza. So your argument makes no sense. Neither of us are economists. It's the economist
Don't assume who I am.
Are you an economist?
I could be.
But are you?
I could be.
Are you?
I'm not going to tell you.
Are you?
Okay. So we've seen enough of the overview. Okay. He pretty much sat between 20 right-wing Republicans, and it got chaotic, right? I mean, and there was quite a bit that was said, and like I said, it's before we get too deep into it, I'm assuming that you've seen some of the clips, right?
I watched it
because
all.
I told you that I just happened to see that you posted a story about it recently.
No, I watched the whole
so
debate.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, I watched the whole debate. I saw the whole
okay.
debate. Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on it overall?
Overall, I thought that it did a couple of things. One, it highlighted how I told my son the reason why I made him sit down and watch a couple of clips from it. I picked a couple of the debates and I wanted him to see it. I wanted him to understand the perspective of the other side. I don't feel like you can have a society where we choose to work in a type of democracy and you don't take time to listen and understand the vantage point of what you consider to be your opposition. Because you may find in the middle of them explaining their perspective that there are a lot of commonalities between the two of them. So I wanted him to listen to how discourse happens. That was what I felt was one of the highlights of it. One of the things, however, that may have been considered detrimental, and I read this on a couple of reviews, is that they felt like he may have amplified the rhetoric and noise amongst the far right community. And so even though he stayed calm and resolute, literally sounded like Hamilton debating right there, that he still was not able to control the noise from the other people and how they amplified the tension between the far right and the liberal perspective. And so I think that I don't know if that did any harm or good to amplify that level of bigotry and just flat out ignorance to the facts.
Right. Yeah, I listen, I completely agree, and it's like we're in a very unique time in history because one of the biggest things that's kind of core to who I am, even as it relates to just this platform and the Tequila Tales, is communication. It's always about communication, and that has actually historically been one of my strongest suits. It's not just the ability to communicate in terms of like articulating thought, but it is really having the capacity to understand people, because I can put myself into their position and not only be able to empathize, but to be able to see life through their lens, regardless of whether or not I agree with you or disagree, right? That's always been a core tenet of who I am, is this desire to understand people. It's one of my two biggest pet peeves. I hate to be taken for granted and I hate to be misunderstood. So as a result, I go through great lengths to understand people as well, because it's okay if we disagree on a topic. But what I've found just throughout my experience in the past is that one of the biggest things that can lead to disagreements, arguments, conflicts, isn't necessarily that there is a merit in what I feel and what you feel. It's normally some type of misunderstanding, some type of miscommunication. The breakdown in the communication is normally what leads to the argument. Because in many cases, we don't necessarily have to agree about things, but if we are both showing up in good faith and we're both being honest about just what it is that we are articulating, then at some point we can find some type of resolution, right? Whether it be agreeing to disagree, whether it be trying to find some type of compromise. Like there's so many different elements that occur once we make certain that we know exactly where I stand and where you stand. So I've always made that one of my core tenets. And it's one of the reasons that I typically can get along with a lot of people, regardless of whether or not I like them or not. I'm going to respect how you feel, and I'm going to request or command for you to do the same with me, right? If we are going to be able to move together in any type of cohesion. What's been happening recently, I feel, is I'm having an inability doing that because I don't feel that what is being articulated is honest. People know they on bullshit, right? Like, I'd much rather you be the villain. I'd much rather you just let me know how it really is, and then we can determine how we want to move forward. But what's been happening now, it's kind of like the segment that I do sometimes where it's like everybody's grifting, right? Everybody is grifting. And to me, the grift is I know I'm bullshitting you. I know that I'm being full of it right now, but I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to articulate that, but I'm still going to posture and position myself as if I have some type of legitimacy or some type of moral high ground. And it's difficult to debate that. It's difficult to debate someone that is not debating in good faith, because how do I combat your lies with my truth, right? How do I combat your lies with actual facts? And I feel like there was a point where we really did believe that the other side believed some of the stuff that they were saying. And so that's why we would spend the time in this debate, because there was this belief that this was a battle of wits. There was this belief that the strongest point was ultimately going to win, that whoever it was coming with the actual facts, with the actual data. Like I said, the strongest argument is supposed to win. And what you're starting to realize a lot more glaringly is that it's never really been about that. It's never been about the strongest arguments. It's never been about the facts. That's just how people posture and kind of play that game. And so what it's starting to lead me into is it makes me want to detach. It makes me want to say, then why are we even wasting time with this back and forth if you really cannot be won over? If you have already decided, whether, like cognitive dissonance, I'm going to believe exactly what it is that I want to believe, regardless of what it is that you present me with. See, I'm not that person. Like literally, George, I will change my mind on a dime if the person I am talking to presents something that I know is not only factual, but that in that moment, as I'm assessing things, I realize I'm wrong. I'm never so invested in my state of thinking to whereas I'm not at least willing to change if somebody's point is proven to be better. But that's not what's happening. And you start to realize more and more that most people are not like that, right? And most people don't care about whether or not they're on the side of truth, whether or not their facts line up. It's like, no, this is how I want to feel. And what was fascinating, I will say this much, just even as we're having this conversation, what was fascinating about that exchange was watching people admit that now, admittedly, that probably was refreshing. So I will say that. And in all honesty, at first I was like, this is trash juice and they need to throw this shit out, because I'm getting tired of us wasting our time, meaning us specifically in the Black community. I'm getting tired of us trying to ration with people that don't believe in anything rational, right? It's an exercise in futility from my perspective. And while we are wasting time trying to convince people that are dead set on believing things one way, what we're losing is that time. That time is the thing we can't get back. That time we could have been spending with one another, building something, right? Insulating ourselves, circling our wagons, and moving forward collectively towards achieving something more sustainable, rather than sitting here arguing with people that, like I said, they're not debating in good faith, right? They know they're wrong. And you saw these kids saying that, because when Mehdi was breaking them down, it got to the point where they was like, "Oh, well, I don't care." Well, because that's what I want. And it was just like, "Oh shit, okay." You know what I mean? And so at that point, it's like, then why are we talking then?
He got to that point a couple of times where he was just like, "I'm not debating a fascist," or there was one who was openly fascist. His name was Connor, the one that, and so he actually ended up reports are saying that he got fired from his job because of everything, and was online, starting to GoFundMe and whatnot because he's been let go. But and he literally told him, it was like, you're on YouTube and somebody's going to see this, and this isn't going to end well for you when they listen to your perspective on life. Look, there's two things that I get from your sentiments. One, I feel like you're giving them too much credit to think that they know what they're doing. I don't think that they are smart enough to know what they're doing. The reason why I say that is because of the fact that John Hope Bryant has been promoting a lot over the last year or so. And if you don't know who John Hope Bryant is, he's an economist. He has Operation Hope based out of Atlanta, helping a lot of Black and brown folks get in their home and whatnot, improve their credit score, get their piece of the American dream, etc. One of the things that he's been very clear about saying is that there are not enough college-educated white men to continue to drive GDP in this country. And because of that fact, we have to start to allow other people to the table. Otherwise, we're at risk of no longer being an economic superpower in the country. Now, because of that fact and reality, what we're seeing is people who are combining the fear of that reality with the fear of a what I call a ghost in their own head of white fear of being replaced and being literally just like taken out because they're being outnumbered. So they know that population wise, they are becoming the minority, and that narrative is being pumped so much into their community that is all that's driving their emotional decisions. So when I go back to my first statement of it, I think you're giving them too much credit, is I don't think they are cognitively aware of what exactly they are saying and what is at stake for the broader community. I think they are so hell-bent and stuck on their own reality and fear that they don't have the bandwidth to be able to acknowledge that 97% of what they're saying makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, which is why when you hear it, you're like, you can't possibly believe that. I think they really do believe it because fear is driving their lens. They are literally thinking from a scarcity mindset. They are thinking that there's not enough to go around and it's all going to run out and it's going to be taken over by them. And if that happens, then I lose my stake. And you and I both know whenever anybody is driven by fear and emotion, that is like a recipe for bad decision making and for a horrible perspective.
So let me ask you this, because you said quite a bit that I do agree with, and to add a bit more clarity to even just my earlier stance, because you are right, that there are, I have been aware that there is a significant portion of the other side that just truly does believe the BS, right? They've drank the Kool-Aid, they're drunk off of it. I think that who, in many cases, I'm probably internally referring to are the people that are leading them, right? That those people know better, and that there is a significant group of individuals, and typically the ones who lead that party, who do know better. They are aware, like meaning the politicians. Once you make it to that space, you've got some education, you've gone to college, you've interacted with some people, and you've even been inside of the halls of Congress. And I know you know better than this, right? So it's like you can play the game as much as you want to convince your constituency that you don't know better, but the sheer nature of you even being able to get to that, like look, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for instance, some of the shit that she says is just bad shit. It's like, ma'am, you are worth like $22 million. Like, and you're talking like one of those crazy people that be outside the rallies with the tattoos on and buying the bobbleheads. And it's like, you guys are grifting. And so you know, when I think about like some of the back and forth and you know, when you see it Congress wise and the whole nine, and, you know, every time that we see people inside of the halls of Congress, whether it be senators or if it's state reps, going back and forth and arguing, it all feels like theater, because it's like you're spitting facts to someone that has already told you that there's a new thing now called alternative facts, right? It's like, and I think I'll also call hypocrisy, because it's like the things that they are permitting or the things that they are saying that they are comfortable with, you and I both know that if the complexion of the individual that was in the White House was different, all of a sudden they'd see it. All of a sudden you'd be able to read through all the bullshit, right? You know, the mysterious assassination attempt, you know, let that have been Kamala. Oh, you would have had to have had forensic knowledge. Everybody would have been interviewed, re-interviewed. They would have had, you know, even CNN, I'm saying the networks, everybody would have been on board to say, oh, we have to comb through this with a fine-tooth comb and look over every nook and cranny so that we can make certain that this is legitimate. But the guy who's known for lying, right, just happens to narrowly miss being assassinated, and he has never talked about it for an entire year, right? And it's like, y'all are playing in our faces right now. And so even we say that these people are believing the narrative, I'm like, nah, because there's no way that they believe that he really just happened to get his ear grade. Now, is there a 10, 15, maybe 20% of the party that believes that? Yeah, right. There's always going to be some people that are kind of off their rocker, but you cannot believe me that your average individual, right, with the 401k that thinks rationally or critically just believes that this is the luckiest man on the planet who just so happens to never have talked about it. And we haven't gotten any information, nor have they asked for the information. And that's what I'm getting at. Like, there's a level of compliance that goes into this that says you guys are in on it, right? Whether it be consciously or unconsciously, y'all know that something ain't right, but you've decided consciously to turn that part of your brain off. So if you've decided to turn that part of your brain off, what good is it to me to sit up and try to rationalize with you? And that's one of the biggest things that I see happening right now from people on the left. Like, now there's this whole big thing where it's like, oh man, one of the biggest issues that's happening with the Democrats is they haven't been speaking to these men, you know, and these young men. And, you know, we got to make them feel seen and blah. And that to me is bullshit, right? Because it's like, okay, then what are we about to turn into if now all of a sudden we have to placate to idiots? And I'm going to call it that, right? Not unintelligent, not ignorant, because ignorant means I can inform you and now you're better. No, you're an idiot because the truth is sitting right in front of you and you're choosing not to see that. So if we or the people on the left are supposed to be more about facts and something that is, you know, and I'm not going to make it seem like they're just totally virtuous and like there's no bullshit that happens on the left side. But I'm like, you guys, we are in a space where reality no longer means anything. But now, because people feel like, well, you know, Democrats lost the election. Now there's this whole belief of, well, what's supposed to be the direction of the party. And so you got a lot of people that are doing stuff like this now, right? Where it's like, oh, we got to sit up and debate with them. Oh, well, we got to meet them on their level. Oh, well, we got to try to debate. And it's like, okay, go ahead and argue with a crazy person and think you're going to paint them into a corner. You know what they're going to do? They're going to pull out their paintbrush. And just like Wile E. Coyote used to paint, you know, a trap door or, you know, a tunnel, they're going to paint a tunnel and they're going to run their crazy ass in that tunnel. Like, you don't have the same powers that they do because you're limited by facts. You're limited by the actual truth of the situation. If that's not what their foundation is, I don't even know how we relate to them. How do you relate to someone that has shown you that they are willing to sacrifice their own well-being to see to it that Black and brown people don't come up? Right. Like I said, it feels like an exercise in futility to me. You know what I mean? And it gets to the point where it's like, can we invest that time? Right. Do we have the luxury of investing that time of coddling them and trying to convince them not even to just accept your humanity, but to just be rational and realistic, right? Like, I mean, it's like we are so far off the deep end now that I hate to be nihilistic, but there's a piece of me that's almost like, damn, I think it all may have to come down in order for some of these people to like shake themselves out of it. And I'm talking about the ones that either believe the BS or the ones that are complying and they know it's nonsense. And maybe they think they're going to be able to pull the parachute in just enough time, right? I feel like everybody's flirting with disaster right now. I felt like that for a while. And that to me is what is frightening, but really more aggravating than anything, and that's what I was getting at. The fact that I feel like there is a significant portion that does know better, but they're benefiting from it, right?
I think we're looking at a couple things here, Isaac. Like one, the biggest thing is that we're dealing with a authoritarian type of leader, right? So when you have an authoritarian leader, there's a couple things that they subscribe to and they want to make sure happens. Number one, they want to make sure that all your independent institutions are undermined. So you saw the attack on colleges, universities, etc. Secondly, you got to spread as much disinformation as possible. Then you want to have a bunch of scapegoats and vulnerable groups. You want to have corrupt elections and incite violence and abuse executive power. Like all of these are things that when you're in that type of system of leadership, it happens, right? So then the question comes back to what you're saying. Well, what do? We don't have time to sit here and mull over it or coddle or anything else like that, because we know that's not going to be beneficial for the scenario as well as a positive outcome for our community, right? So here are some things that you can do. Number one, understand that what we need from our leaders right now is accountability and transparency. And if that looks like those leaders that are in Congress or any other sect to be able to be honest and say, look, this is what we're dealing with. This is what it is. Here's what's happening. You need to find out this is the truth. Do your own research. We need that. Secondly, you got to have a bunch of diverse groups that have like a shared vision and goals that are going to help to resist. Because ultimately, this is not the time to be passive and to tuck our heads in the sand, or even to allow the authoritative nature of this administration to push us back, because ultimately that's what they want to do. They wanted you to get so mentally drained to the point where you just tap out and say, you know what, I'm done. And then another thing we can do is protect independent courts, media, and other institutions, because ultimately those are the most important to making sure that the truth gets out, that we continue to teach history and give it the proper context and narrative. And then always promoting awareness that, look, this is the tactics that's being used by this authoritarian. And we have to engage in a pro-democracy movement to make sure that all happens. Now, I'm not saying that all that is going to, lead to a win on either side. But what I am saying is that, like Coretta Scott King said, every generation has a fight. And it's that generation's responsibility to identify what that fight is and fight it on its own terms. And I'm paraphrasing. So the fight in the civil rights movement was what it was, and they had to do that fight that way. Now we see that the fight is this way, and we now have a responsibility as the next generation of leaders to step up and take the reins and say, okay, this is our fight. This is how we have to do it. So that means that we're going to have to combine some of the things from the past that our ancestors and other civil rights leaders did and utilize those techniques to help push us forward. But then we're also going to have to get very creative and systematic about the times we're in and understand the dynamics of algorithms and social media and their impacts on spreading disinformation, and make sure that we combat that with enough effective truth. That's why your Joanne Reeds are being taken off the air. That's why your Stephen Colbert's are being taken off the air, because as satirical and laughing that his show is, there's a lot of truth that he was put in his monologues and his commentary and various things. Jon Stewart's and all of these people who are like seemingly making light of the situation. What they're really doing is saying this is a call to action for everybody to see and seize the moment that we're in, and then make a conscious decision to step up and do something about it.
Okay, like I completely agree with what it is that you're saying, and this is one of the reasons that I enjoy good conversations, because, like I told you, like I have the ability to augment and evolve my thinking in real time, right? I'm never so invested unless it's something morally, right? Like there are some things that are just morally wrong. Right. You ain't gonna convince me that Epstein Island was. I mean, well, it kind of depends, like nah. Like this is something that some things are white and black, right? Like there is
baby oil only has one use. Like we don't need that much baby oil. Right. I'm with you.
Right. So I have the ability to receive new information and say, okay, I can see the value in that. And as you're talking, one of the things that just hit me is kind of what you were saying in terms of like not becoming so complacent. And maybe the purpose of some of this stuff, like this Jubilee stuff, is to get you outraged. And that may not be a bad thing, right? Because I do think that you have a lot of people who kind of have gotten to a space of, I think sometimes it's complacency. I think sometimes it's surrender, right? And what I mean by surrender, like sometimes people give up. Like there's a difference between surrendering and giving up, right? There are some situations where you may surrender to whatever the universe wants or needs to occur. Like there are times where, you were just in a storm, the currents are going all over the place, and it don't matter how bad you want to go north. For right now, you better lock the hatchets, pull up the anchor, and just try to ride this thing out, because the currents are going all over the place and you just are trying not to allow the waves to capsize you. It's about preservation. It's about safety. And then trying to figure out if you can gain some ground during that period. And I think that there are times where I'm trying to figure out what is the wisest course of action for myself, my family, my community, right? And just everybody at large. And I think that when it comes to, because I am going to play one or two of these videos, specifically the one that you just spoke about a moment ago, where I say to myself, these type of individuals, the only kind of wisdom that they can gain, the only way they are going to be able to grow is probably going to be a direct byproduct of pain. And in my attempt, or our attempt, to prevent them from feeling the pain. Now, to be truthful, we're also trying to preserve ourselves, right? Like we want to make certain that we don't capsize. But then there are moments where I'm like, sometimes things do need to be destroyed, right? And that's why I say, like, I don't want to be nihilistic, but I say to myself, like, I imagine, what if Kamala had gotten in office? And as much as I would have much preferred that, I think about how she would have had to have fought tooth and nail to get every little thing approved that ultimately would have still benefited white men and white women in far greater numbers and percentages than it ever did us, right? Like we literally are sitting up and fighting to preserve DEI when we were like 5th or 6th on the list of beneficiaries of it, right? And so it's almost like, damn, like we are literally fighting to save everyone else. And so that's why I understand when a lot of the, the women of the 92% was like, yo, we sitting on the rooftop sipping coffee about to watch the world burn. Because it's like, well, maybe that's what the world needs. And then from the ashes, we can rebuild something new, right? Like I'm telling you, as much as I hate to admit it, there ain't nothing I love more when we see these FAFO clips that happen from, farmers that are like about to be straddled in debt. It's like, as much as I don't like to see people go through bad things, I'm like, I'm just waiting for you all to snap out of this, right? Yeah. Because you all were literally voting against your self-interest, and I'm just trying to figure out, like, this wasn't even the difficult test for us, right? Like, I mean, you all really thought a billionaire was in your best interest, and it's like, nah, y'all knew the interest that he was really serving. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those things where it's like, damn, like, yeah, I get the fight, but I'm also like, you know, with us not having any 3 of the houses, and then you got him running roughshod, and then every time he does something new, it's like they just keep going along with it. And I'm like, yo, this is so incredibly dangerous to society, to just have half of the people that just really are you know what I'm saying, off the reservation, and pretending like they don't see it. And so that I think that's where my mind goes into this space where it's like, sometimes silence, sometimes pulling back can be revolutionary. It can be a bit of a protest, especially when it comes to our people, because I feel like fighting for rights, fighting for our civil rights, and like that is so innate to our culture that it's become knee jerk. It's become knee jerk, right? And everybody gets to benefit from this. And I'm not saying that we don't get any benefit, but I'm saying, like, sometimes, man, it makes me question, man, is there a reckoning that's needed in a situation like this, just so that we can say, okay, now that everybody has been humbled, now are you guys ready to listen? You know what I'm saying? Now are you all actually ready to move forward? And then also hold your politicians accountable that have been fighting to get in this position of leadership, just to show us how completely inept they are. Right. And no matter what that man says, man, like, they all buy into it. And it's like, man, I guess y'all not looking at the same shit that I'm looking at. Okay, then let's move on. And that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think that we should just be hands off, just going about our lives. I'm saying that it's making me question if our time should be spent more efficiently. I saw a interview with former President Obama. He was getting interviewed by this gentleman where the topic was like, where is Obama? You know, because that's one of the big things that everybody always wants to feel like, you know, man, where is Kamala? Where is Obama? And like, and because they kind of feel like they should be doing more. They should be front and center, you know, leading the charge, similar to how Trump was for them 4 years that he believed he got robbed of the election, right? Like, he fought tooth and nail, and we see the results of what happens when you fight, right? And they feel like Obama should be doing something that's similarly. Now, first off, I feel like this man has done more than enough, you know. However, what I saw from this interview was that, you know, a lot of his time and a lot of his investment has gone into his foundation, you know, and people think he's just lining his pockets, but it's like, nah, he's actually training up the next group of, you know, leaders, right? Because the solution may not be a quick fix. It may not be something that we can, you know, just tweak something here, tweak something here. Man, as soon as we get back to House of Representatives, we're good. It's like, nah, because you still got half of America that's hell-bent on preventing progress in every conceivable way, you know, off of a bed of lies, right? And so you say to yourself, like, is that really what progress looks like? You know, that's one thing I'll give these Republicans props about, man. They played the long game. They played the long game, man, and they were putting people in position. You know what I'm saying? They started working on the local levels, and it was almost like, I don't know if just Democrats fell asleep at the wheel or just what, or if we just believed that, man, after Obama, y'all saw how good, you know, I think that was the thing. I think a lot of us underestimated how much that shit really bothered a pretty significant portion of society, like on some spiritual levels, to whereas, you know, we had to see a Trump. Hey, I mean, now
you're just laughing, but honestly, yeah, like when you listen to the whole thing from that debate, you begin to see how many people felt disconnected and unheard during those years when President Obama was in office. And so that's why Trump constantly, if you notice, whenever he gets back in the corner, if he's got to re-energize his base, just bring Obama's name back up.
Right.
And what that does is it's just like, oh yeah, that's why we got into this. Okay, yeah, hate Obama. Oh, I'm back now. Sorry, I fell asleep. Almost got me. You know, I mean, but the reality is this, right?
Yeah, it's focused.
That's right. but the reality is this: Obama literally felt like democracy was at risk then. He constantly talked about and highlighted how Nelson Mandela was effective in his approach of pushing democracy in areas where authoritism, I'm struggling with that word tonight, but you get what I'm saying. Like the authority, the people who wanted to have a monarchy of sorts in their government were there and constantly said, this is not the way to do this. We need to make sure that we organize as a community. So to answer your question of should we be spending our time in a different way, I absolutely agree with you. We should. And that way has to be intentional, where we are doing two things. We've got to heal ourselves quickly from the trauma so that we can move forward into the future of what's out there still for us to capture. Right? We cannot sit here as a people and continue to do a great job at highlighting the offenses and atrocities so well that we just sit back and say, yeah, you know how they're going to be. You know what they always do. Ain't no hope for us. My thought is this, Isaac. I 1,000% believe that in this moment, as the world burns, as you put it, and as things are slowly but surely breaking down, this is the time to do like a lot of people do when they've got excess disposable income, and that is invest in the stock market when it's cheap. So if you see that the world is burning right now, this is the perfect time to see where is my gifting, and then how can I move me and mine closer to a reality that involves more ownership and equity. Because the quicker I can move us to there, I then begin to level this playing field off as best as I can. Last I'm going to say is I had a friend of mine recently, because we were having this discussion at his house, and we're sitting in his backyard. He's like, man, I don't think we're going to see in my lifetime a certain level of equity and freedom like previous generations have seen. Now, to me, you keep saying that you're being nihilistic. I think that was pure nihilism. Because what it does is it says it almost is like 3 steps away from just don't fight.
Right.
Or either passively just let life happen to you and see how it works out, because you only know they're going to give you but so much. I choose to be like my West Indian mom used to say every time I would tell her what they were doing. She would always say, I don't know they. Who are they? And do you have can you put me on the phone with they? Like, in other words, her perspective is like, I don't see who the people you are that's making you make these dumb decisions. You know what I'm saying? As far as I can tell, you're responsible for following through what I asked you to do, and you're the one making these dumb decisions. So it would be best for you to take responsibility for what you know you can tangibly touch and make the necessary pivots from there. Because we can't, we can go back and forth all day long about what's going on in rural communities. But you and I both know we don't know what it's like to grow up in a rural community struggling with the one traffic light, and your closest grocery store is miles away, and your education system sucks just as bad as it does in the rural community. And so you're sitting here thinking that the rural community is getting hands up on you, and the reality is y'all both struggling together in real time together.
Right.
And you're being duped by the same narrative. You know, and so man, I think this is prime opportunity for us as a culture to begin to figure out what your gift is, figure out why you have the skill sets you do, learn what those passions are that make you drive and stay up late doing random podcasts when everybody else is asleep. There's something in it, right, that ultimately is designed to shift the trajectory of your generation and future generations, because it's inside of you to do. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot of life in that. We have to make sure that if anybody's going to have a scarcity mindset, it's not going to be us. We've lived in scarcity long enough.
I agree. Now listen, initially I was going to play a couple of those videos, but no need, because we both gave a pretty comprehensive, breakdown of how we felt about it, and I want to be sensitive to your time because we in different time zones, you know what I'm saying? And there was definitely some topics I want to touch on while I had you here. And then, maybe one or two once you bounce out for me, just because there's some things I got to work out.
I'm gonna stay with you, man. I know the clips took a lot of our time, man. We were locked in.
but George, I got a question, man, because I want to know if you ever seen one of those kiss cam moments that go viral, but for all the wrong reasons. Well, that's exactly what happened at a Coldplay concert in Massachusetts when the CEO of a tech company and his VP of HR got a little too cozy on camera. Things spiraled fast. So let's unpack what happens when personal choices meet public platforms and how something as innocent as a kiss can turn into a corporate firestorm. So I want to start with just a video to just give us a quick wrap up of exactly how it looks. Because I think you need to see how it looks if you haven't seen it already, right? Anybody that is watching this right now that has not seen it, I don't know where you've been, but just to be thorough, because every once in a while, sometimes you on the grind and you ain't got time to see videos that have gotten hundreds of millions of views. I get that, but this is where we at right now.
Fallout from the kiss cam moment seen around the world. A married CEO and the head of his company's HR department caught cuddled up on camera at a Coldplay concert outside Boston last week. The two quickly uncoupling, hiding from view as lead singer Chris Martin provided the play-by-play. The clip featuring astronomer CEO Andy Byron and his chief people officer, Kristen Cabot, quickly going viral, seen millions of times. Now, the tech company saying Byron resigned in response to the scandal, writing in a statement, "Our leaders are expected to set the standard in both conduct and accountability, and recently that standard was not met." The moment turning into a cultural flashpoint.
Oh, they did it!
Sparking dozens of memes and videos, even spoofed at Friday night's Phillies game.
Either they're having an affair or they're just very shy.
Brands like Globe Air, a private jet business, also jumping on the moment, posting this video, writing, "We help you through every stage of life. Vacation is calling."
They want to show that they're part of the popular zeitgeist.
Some experts say the video struck a particular nerve with so many because of the parties involved.
Why this matters to the average person is a sense of justice. They're feeling the cynicism, the hypocrisy, what's going on here. The VP of HR and the CEO think they could even get away with it. No one else in their company could.
So a moment like this is the ultimate internet fodder. So the memes and the jokes, they're expected for the two people involved. But of course, a situation like this, presumably a cheating scandal, leaves so many other innocent people, family, co-workers, unfairly, unfortunately caught.
Well, listen, I mean, when I tell you, George, I have never in my life seen someone's life crash out that fast. Yeah. Like this one was something different that I feel like I've never seen before. You know what I mean? Like we're talking 24 hours. When they showed those two mascots at the Phillies game, that was within 24 hours of after the video went viral. Like it was like the thing happened on a Wednesday, Thursday it was going viral, Friday you got mascots parodying you in the entire, stadium laughing, and they're in on the joke. And I'm just like, George, I don't know what this man did in his past life. He must have been a slave owner or somebody that was doing something that was incredibly heinous. Okay, because this ain't like oh man, somebody got a vendetta against you. No, this is like some spiritual karmic revenge type shit that comes from some karmic debt that spans over lifetimes. Okay, like I mean, this dude, he might have been the one that was, on the Titanic that told them to ditch the boats. Oh no, ditch the boats. It makes it look ugly. And now this is the reincarnation of him. And God was just waiting for this moment, because you see how my man from Coldplay, even like I didn't even see that part at first. I just saw the memes. I didn't even realize that my man from Coldplay is the one that called it out.
Yeah.
No, stop it, bro. Oh my God. Oh, there's so much dealing with that, man. And it's just like you talk about a crash and burn. And I feel like if they had played it off better.
Yeah.
I don't even know if this makes the news. I don't even know if his wife finds out. Even though it was on the, if he just leaned in and she didn't freak out, right? Like the way that they freaked out, bro, made it very clear. Oh shit! Wait a minute, hold on.
Yep.
Hold on. There's a niche here, and somebody needs to scratch that shit. I know everybody in that arena was just like, nope. Rewind the tape. Rewind the tape.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, man. So what's your thoughts, bro? I mean, man, let me tell you something, man. It's a lot going on, man.
I told a group of, I was hanging with a group of guys tonight at a men's group, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this came up. And I said to them, honestly, guys, and I said it playfully like this because I wanted them to laugh, but I wanted it to drive home. I said, testosterone is a hell of a drug. And they were like, what? I said, no, man, like think about as a boy, the most random stuff you used to do. The stuff you would just jump off of and not even think about how you're gonna land. The nights you were out with the homies and y'all were just like, hey, let's go over here and do this random act. And it was like, all right, cool. Not even thinking about the consequences. You know what I'm saying? I think that like one of the toughest things that we as men have to deal with is regulating our own spatial awareness to consequences based on whether or not testosterone is driving our decisions or is logical decision making taking place. It's the reason why I think as a man gets into his 40s and 50s, he starts to become more resolute. Part of it has to do with wisdom and having made enough mistakes and bumped your head. But the reality is the reason why you made those mistakes and bumped your head 9 times out of 10 was because testosterone was driving you and you were not rationally thinking at the time. Now, I am speaking from my vantage point, and I'm trying not to paint with a broad brush. But what I have discovered in my lifetime, Isaac, and I'm pretty sure that you can relate with this, is that I have not spent a lot of time in my younger years thinking with the head that you see in this frame. And a lot of my decisions, whether they were money decisions, clothing decisions, car decisions, and a lot of other decisions were driven on what the ladies gonna think about it when they see it.
Yeah.
How they gonna feel when they look, right?
Yeah.
And so I believe that as a man, if you don't come to grips with that at some point, then you're on a slow trajectory to a fall that for some of us is public and for a lot of us is private. But it is a fall. And so it just speaks volumes to the need for accountability, which is something that a lot of us don't have. Or if we have it, it's tough to subscribe to it because of the desire to want to know it all and be in control of it all.
Okay. Now, George, a lot of what you just said was highly intelligent and on point. Okay. I am about to play devil's advocate.
I want you to, man, because I'm wrestling with it. And I want you to know, Isaac, that I say everything I say to you, Isaac, I want you to understand that I never talk from a standpoint of I got it and I know it.
Right.
I say a lot of stuff from a standpoint of this is how I feel about it, but I'm kind of on the fence. And if you catch me on the right day, I could go the other way.
It's right. Now. I don't even want you to go the other way, but what I want to do is we are about to detach as much as possible who we are from probably where I'm about to like just this very brief detour I'm about to take. And I'm gonna tell you why, because one of the things that I used to do in Tequila Tales in playing the devil's advocate, it is in my attempt to just once again challenge the thought, right? And never being so invested that I feel like I know all. Now, the reason that I personally agree with what it is that you just said is because, you know, we are both speaking as men in our mid 40s that we've developed. And so we have experienced that portion. And now that we are here, we're just naturally in a different space. And we also know the consequences, right? In terms of just like the people that we have in our lives and the lives that we've built and not wanting to jeopardize that. So the reason I'm making it clear that I'm playing devil's advocate is because I'm about to challenge that. And I don't want people viewing that like, is that really what he thinks? You know what I mean? So I'm like, I got to put out here that I'm going to play devil's advocate to as much as possible try to share the other frame of thinking as like potentially a non-married man that's in the lifestyle that is enjoying it or just whatever. You see what I'm saying? That being said, you know, I guess what I'm wondering, because you are right when we talk about like in the past and like us maybe not thinking with this head all the time, you know, and from our perspective now at this age, we may see who we are today as a byproduct of evolution, right? Is something also potentially lost in like when you come to this side of the spectrum? You feel what I'm saying? Like in a sense of, I think there are times where we demonize that driving energy. You know what I mean? Like that testosterone driving force, there's always a negative connotation that's placed on it. And it's seldom not a lot of real understanding of like what it is, or it's not shared in a way to whereas sometimes people can be compassionate about it. And I think that that is a little bit of where the conversation goes when people talk about sometimes men not feeling seen, right? I don't know if it's necessarily a fact of them not feeling seen or if it's the things that actually make us, the things that are actually core to who we are sometimes is oftentimes demonized because it is not in alignment with what women prefer, right? And so as a result of that, there's an understanding or an agreement that if you are going to forge a relationship with a woman, at least in this society, right, in Western society, there is the belief that that's something that you have to sacrifice. You got to sacrifice that part of you, right? And in a sacrificing it, yeah, we see some benefits that come along with it. And so then we feel noble. And because we see some benefits, it becomes easy to be like, oh, well, I've grown beyond that. And then kind of almost like downplay it as if that energy did not also carry with it some benefits as well. You know what I'm saying? And that just sometimes is the byproduct, right? And what do I mean by that? Some people are naturally hunters. Some people are naturally like, they go after what they want. You know what I'm saying? Right. Now, I ain't talking about like grabbing them by the pussy, but just like you are a hunter. Like that's just naturally what it is that you do. And it's hard to, I know it can be difficult sometimes for some people to just be like, all right, well, I'm just going to be this way in all these areas, but in this area, I'm going to just shut it down. You know what I'm saying? I think us as men, we know what that is. We know what it is. And when we have in our barbershop conversation, we acknowledge what it is. But then when we have the overall open conversation, right, we got to sanitize it. You know what I'm saying? We have to sanitize it so that the women that are in our worlds don't have to feel like concerned, right? Or you know, fearful that they don't add value in our world. But it's like But when we see shit like that, we know what that was, right? And what I mean by that is, like, when I look at the comment section, everybody is tearing them down. But every once in a while, I'll see a few people, oftentimes women, that will have some compassion at the very least of just like the humiliation aspect of it, right? Like, this shit is humiliating for not only the wife, both, you know, the husband on the other side, the wife on the other side, the children, but then even just them, right? But people are like, no, they deserve it, right? I think that's why this shit took off, because there are a lot of, and then the fact that they rich also, oh my God, like there is not an ounce of compassion for what has got to be the most humiliating moment, you know what I'm saying, of these people's world that was caught on camera, right? It's almost like when it comes to fidelity, man, this is, and I know this from the very few times that we have broached this topic with Tequila Tales, man, this is the one topic, man, that sometimes I feel like carries the most pain. Like the topic of infidelity inside of relationships carries the most pain out of anything. Like, infidelity carries more pain in conversations than abuse. I've seen women speak about domestic abuse in a more detached fashion, right? Like, still feeling it, still passionate, but more detached. Boy, you get over in this space right here, and very few people can have a intellectual conversation about the forces that drive masculine energy and the forces that drive feminine energy. Like, we can't even have this conversation on an intellectual level, because the moment that you have it, automatically every emotion that comes attached to infidelity has just joined the chat. Yep. Right? And it gets weird. Like, even when, like, the situation with, like, let's take Will Smith and Jada Pinkett, their relationship functioned differently. We had known that shit for years. Everybody thought they were swingers, right? But the moment that it was known that Jada had a little something on the side, everybody collectively has ignored that. We know Will has something on the side, probably a couple of somethings on the side. You know what I'm saying? The idea that she was with someone else made everybody short circuit. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, but that's not how their relationship clearly was functioning. You know what I'm saying? Right. But when it comes to this topic, man, it's like we have an almost inability to have a rational conversation. And like I said, I think it's because of just everything that is attached to infidelity. You know, betrayal, feelings of inadequacy, feelings of, you know, disloyalty. You know what I mean? Like, every heavy emotion that you can imagine is attached to infidelity. And, you know, I remember I was talking to my wife about it, and she was like, okay, first off, dude is worth $70 million, so I ain't crying for him. But then she was like, but for all I know, the wife and him could have had an agreement. It could have been one of them unspoken things, you know what I'm saying? Where it was just like, yeah, I know what he's doing, and, you know, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, different people manage their relationships differently, but they got to get a divorce now, right? Like, if you had an agreement, because of the amount of attention that is now focused on their private life, man, everything just got blown up. He had to, he resigned, you know what I'm saying? I'm assuming she resigned, you know, and it's just like,
she was over HR. Like, that's the wild part. It's like, you know, I mean, it's so I
it's a heavy topic. It's a heavy topic.
It's a heavy topic because, like one of the comments just said, you know, infidelity impacts the most people in a negative way. And the sad reality is that we literally always talk about plane crashes more than we do plane landings. Like, they'll do reports about those all day long, and thousands more planes actually landed safely, and we just like, yeah, whatever. You know, like, it just the fire gets a lot more attention than the building actually being saved. And so I've been wrestling with this topic specifically, not because of infidelity in my own marriage, but more or less the reality that both men and women now are facing a dual reality, in my humble opinion. Like, just like the man had a decision to make in this situation, so did the woman in HR. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, how much savagery are we gonna weigh here and be like, who was more savage or who was less savage? You know, if you look at it, everybody was equally at fault. And then I love your wife's perspective of saying, man, for all we know, he could have been getting beat at home and was getting tired of it. We don't know. Like, we don't know what pushes it. It's not always living wild and free that pushes you away. Sometimes it's a lot of distension within a seemingly healthy situation. And so what this shows, Isaac, is that, man, there's no amount of money or anything that can heal human depravity.
That's a bar. I had to just let that one breathe.
I mean, because think about it, man. Like, we as men, like, so I think I've talked about him before, Jason Wilson, right? Always talking about comprehensive manhood and how, like, having emotional intelligence, integrity and responsibility, having a moral compass, having relationship maturity, having a strong physical and mental health, having self-awareness and growth, having community engagement, like, all of these things are what makes a healthy, purpose-driven man complete, right? And the challenge for us in today's society is where do you find the time to take care of all those leads? Like, the mentally, the emotionally, the physically, the spiritually. You got so many things that are pulling at us on a daily basis. How do you really, really give yourself enough time to heal and really be comprehensive to show up in a relationship so that you can put the necessary guardrails around it so that hopefully this is not your outcome?
Right.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't want anybody to think that on any level that, I'm ever like justifying the behaviors or saying that I'm cool with it. To my knowledge, no one that I've ever been with has been unfaithful, right? Now I will give a disclaimer that no, that's a lie. That's a lie. But that was a different kind of relationship more than I think about it. Like, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about it in real time. You know what I'm saying? Somebody was lying to me and saying that they wasn't dating nobody else, but I kind of knew they was. You know what I'm saying? Or I found out later on that they were, and I'm like, that motherfucker was lying. You know what I'm saying? But we weren't. We didn't have no real big grandiose titles and at the time, so I don't really count that. But like in relationships where we were committed, to my knowledge, no one has done that. So I can't really speak from the space of what that pain or that betrayal feels like, right? Now, to give a little bit of context, I'm also not the type that used to go searching for stuff either, right? Like, on some level, I'm not gonna go as far as say I believed happiness was bliss, but I try to center myself in present-minded awareness as much as possible, in a sense of if I am happy or if I feel fulfilled or if I feel in alignment, then I'm not too much searching for the other stuff. And so I say that to say that if there was something else going on, I didn't know about it because I wasn't searching. And if I found out after the fact, like now, like I remember when you used to date so and so, man, she had a nigga the whole time, I wouldn't care, right? Like, it would not, in my mind, looking at it in hindsight, detract any value of just what that relationship felt like to me. Now that might be cognitive dissonance to me on some level, or it could just be me knowing that, like, different people move differently out here. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's also what becomes the foundation of how I see this. And I don't know if this is thinking that in many ways is a byproduct of studying astrology and just knowing that innately we were all born very different. And it's fascinating sometimes watching people try to pretend as if there's one way to be, and the moment that you deviate from this one way to be, you're just absolutely wrong. And now, like I said, there are some areas where it's black or white, right? We talking about dealing with kids and minors, you know what I'm saying? Disgusting, right? I'm somebody that's like, I'm looking at the age gap. You know what I'm saying? If you too old, man, and she like 19 and you think safe, and I'm like, nigga, nah, that's bro, you was sitting there waiting in the rafter, like, bro,
Right.
you couldn't wait till she was 26, 27, like 18, bro. Come on, nigga. Now I get it, right? Like, yeah, you might like them to look younger, but bro, 18, 19, nigga, nah, yeah, I ain't just giving you no pass because of that. Like, there's black and white to me. But then when it goes into how we manage these relationships, is where I think it becomes nuanced. And, like I said, looking at the comments and shit is where I just start to realize, I'm like, okay, I don't know if this is just a snapshot of how everyone feels, or if it's just that the people that feel differently are like, yeah, I ain't about to say nothing in this comment section. You know what I mean? But I'm just looking at it and it's like, everybody is just like, oh, they deserve the absolute worst. And da-da-da-da. And it's not even like, oh, I gotta feel compassion for a cheater, but just for a moment, it's just like, God damn, this is humiliating. Like, the human side of you at one point don't just go, damn, this is a lot. Like, I get it, you know what I'm saying? Like, get into an argument or something, maybe, deal with some other fallout, but like, yo, like Phillies mascots parodying you, you know what I'm saying, dude? Like, there was a clip I saw on Instagram that shit had 56 million views, you know what I'm saying? And it's just one, you know what I mean? I'm like, this dude was a slave owner in his past life, bro, because this is a level of hazing that I have never seen, dog. It is so brutal that it is making that side of me come out like, what did my man saying, Rocky? Throw in the damn towel. Like, that's how I feel. Like, God damn, man. Like, you literally had Republicans making memes on some old, like, I was just like, okay, this is this is intense when Republicans are making memes about this shit. You know what I'm saying? So I was just like, hey, man, can tap out, y'all. Tap out, man. This is hurting. This is hurting your boy. And it is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
Bro, do you have time for just one more while I got you? You got time for one more?
Let's do it, man. We're here. Let's go for the home stretch.
Right. And the reason that I wanted to do this was because I actually want your perspective on this particular one, because not only being someone that has, children, but then, just as we continue to evolve and we think about our own childhoods is what made this one kind of unique. So hold on, let me see if I can first cue up my little infographic. Yeah, here we go. So this segment right here is what I like to call stay out of the comments. Okay, stay out of the comments. So this one is called the burden of being the strong one. So have you ever been told, we never worried about you, you always knew how to take care of yourself? Sounds like a compliment, but for many of us it hits like a weight. Tonight we are digging into what it really means to be the strong one in your family, the one who never got checked on, the one who had to figure it out. Let's talk about that quiet sadness and how praise sometimes feels like abandonment. So I was initially looking at this on Threads, and it caught my eye immediately. It said, one day my dad casually said, we never worried about you. You always knew how to take care of yourself. And I can't lie, I felt so much sadness hearing that. So off the top, man, when I saw that, I was like, that's kind of interesting, right? And, because I knew kind of where she was coming from, in that, right? Like, oftentimes, if you, not only from a parental standpoint, if you have, if you're independent, people get comfortable in that. But then also not just from, childhood or rearing children, but then even close friends, and I think that that's why recently, we started saying things like check in on your strong friends, because sometimes just because someone isn't giving those signals doesn't mean that they aren't going through something, right?
Right.
And so, I feel like we broached a topic similar when we were talking about Twitch, and when he committed suicide, and how like that just caught everybody off guard, but I thought it was fascinating from the perspective of rearing children, and I wanted to get your perspective on it, because, it's like, yes, on one level, I know that I have to care for everyone. And so there's obviously various extremes, and we'll look at a few of the comments just from what people were sharing. But I also see it from another perspective where it's like, yeah, but sometimes when someone is stronger or more competent, that does mean that you can afford to provide them more freedom or more liberty. That's supposed to be a benefit of being competent, right? Like the moment that your child knows how to wash themselves, all right, it's time to stop giving you a bath, right? Like I'm teaching you to be independent. So as you are becoming independent, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I obviously got to balance it, but there's a fine line between wanting to support and crippling and enabling your child, to not grow up and not be independent. And I know just us as, mature fathers, and obviously you've been in the game longer than I have. But just even at this age, it's like, I'm pretty certain that there are times where you have to kind of like balance that, right? Like, okay, is this a tough love moment, or is this, so I'm just curious to know, like, not only what you thought about what it was that she shared, but as it relates to how you are navigating this space with your children.
It's I grew up in the church, right? And in church culture, it is promoted that men are to be the head of the household, right? Like heavy promoted. And so there's a model of you've got God, then you've got the man hears from God, and then his wife submits to the man, and then the kids submit to the parents. And so there's this hierarchy of unspoken expectations that not only are they unspoken, but they're oftentimes unacknowledged. And so because of the duality of those two perspectives, you end up feeling like you've got to fix problems no matter what. And you either develop loneliness because you feel like no one else can understand your perspective and vantage point and the pressure you feel. You also have like guilt and resentment that can develop because you feel like, well, I'm supposed to be in this position of doing this, but I also resent the people for not even checking on me to make sure I'm okay while I'm handling all this weight and stopping all these bullets and correcting all this stuff before they even wake up every morning. Like I'm taking all this fire and nobody even knows I'm taking it. And then lastly, what I've learned is that it can feel like your healing process as a man is ultimately delayed because while you're keeping in the resentment and having the unspoken expectations that you're carrying and you're feeling lonely, you end up kind of emotionally suppressing yourself and ending up in a cave internally. And in that cave, you can stay in that cave for a long time and don't nobody know that you're in there. And so we've all seen men who ultimately are just like silent and seem resolute with a stoic face, but on the inside, they're like a little boy in the corner of that cave crying, right? So while this is all admirable and people are looking at you like you're the Superman of the room, what therapy has taught me is that you have to, one, be okay acknowledging when you're tired. Like you have to just let somebody know, honestly, I'm drained. I was joking around with my wife this weekend because we were supposed to be in Virginia Beach this weekend for a family reunion, but I tore my calf playing basketball. And
sorry to hear that.
yeah, man, 45 is real. And so, I tore my calf. The whole family trip is like, we ain't going nowhere because daddy's got to go get checked up and all this stuff. And so I asked my wife at one point, I was like, can you just rub my calf for me? Because it hurts really, really bad. And then my wife said, while she was rubbing my calf, she was like, when am I going to get my massage? And my first thought was, fam, like, I got a whole ripped calf right here. And you asking me about when your massage is, dog? Like, good and darn well I'll take care of you. But like, now you bring that up?
Right.
And I literally went on this like for about a good 5 minutes. Like, I'm honestly tired. Like, I'm really, really tired. I've spent 2 days on this like stay-at-home vacation that we've had, sitting there dozing in and out of sleep with the TV watching me, because I start my days between 3 and 5 a.m. and go to bed like around now every single day almost. And so I say all that and emote all of that just to let it be known that, like, yeah, there are strong people out here that nobody checks on, and it is their responsibility to have to be the adult to themselves and their own little kid to make sure they're okay. Now, is that right or wrong? Who knows? But what I have learned is that somebody has to be the adult in the room. I've also learned that all of us have a small version of ourselves that is already wounded and is seeking, like, a lot of healing, a lot of informed trauma that needs to be resolved. And we have to take time to be aware of how we feel and be honest with those in our lives and say, the buck stops here, I'm done. Last thing I'm going to say, and I heard Jason Wilson say this, that one of the things he hates is the whole phrase, happy wife, happy life. Because what that denotes is that all a successful relationship takes is for the woman to be kept healthy and happy all the time. And the man's health and happiness is a negotiation that may or may not happen. And his thinking is that more or less it should be that happy couples are the way it should be. And there should be a mutual understanding of, I'm here for you and you're here for me. And so when you look at like the whole idea of, should we be standing up for our strong friends? Yes, absolutely. Is it admirable that a person is strong and makes other people think that they don't need support? Absolutely. But the biggest strength is knowing when to rest, when to ask for help, and when to share the load.
Okay. Now, stay out of the comments. So I'm gonna just hit a couple of these just so just because like I said, I thought it was kind of dope to see different people's perspectives, because it oftentimes is one of those things that seldom gets voiced, and so it is important, one, to just acknowledge that other people have gone through experiences that maybe you haven't, so that it can increase your level of understanding and your capacity to be able to relate with this archetype should you meet it, but then also too, it can incline an individual to ask those questions of themselves, right? And more or less attempt to identify whether there are any elements of yourself, to the point even of what you just said a moment ago, like that needs healing, like really kind of digging back into your childhood. And I do so now. I find myself doing it a lot more often now. And there are times where I almost feel a little guilty doing it, right? I feel a little guilty doing it because I know that for, by and large, I had an incredible childhood, two very loving parents. And there really isn't much that I could have asked of them that they were not already doing, right? So, I long say I'm like the Warren Buffett of relationships, and I know that in many ways I've been privileged in that regard, but I would obviously be lying if I made it seem like they were perfect, right? And that, they didn't make missteps, and didn't deposit some baggage, even seemingly while attempting to protect me. Maybe you were depositing some of your fears and some of your limitations that I later on had to unlearn, because while that may have been one of your truths, it wasn't universal truth. And so it wasn't something that was indicative to a trial or a tribulation that I personally was going to face. And so I feel like that is a part of development, and a part of our evolution is us understanding the need to be able to do that. So one of the reasons that I will kind of look back sometimes is because of the fact that, I am a parent now, and, you have to look, it's very easy to fall into a space where you say, well, this is how I was raised, right? And almost justify certain actions because that was how you were raised, and you like yourself, and clearly you turned out okay, so why should you be depriving your child from that? And then even online, right? Like there's certain things in online culture where you see a kid doing something, and I know people are joking in the comments, but especially as Black people, we make it clear, I ought to beat that ass, and there's a popular gif where it's like a belt, and then you see the belt snapping, and you know what that means, belt to ass, right? And so we come from a people that do not spare the rod, right? And on some levels, it can come with some benefits of reverence and obedience, and just, not really getting too out of pocket. But then, if it's not balanced, right, then, it can be easily become abuse, which oftentimes it was, or just you jumping the gun and projecting your grown person thoughts, emotion, and identity onto a child that is severely underdeveloped, and having an unfair expectation on what you are expecting a 2 or 3 or 5-year-old to do, right? Like, you start to learn as we evolve about just the development of the brain, and just like the frontal cortex, and just how certain things you don't even really process right until you get beyond ages of 21, 22, 25, right? And so, we can get so frustrated with our children that we're lashing out, and we think that we're teaching them something. And yes, we are teaching them something, but not what we thought we were teaching them, right? We're not teaching them not to do that thing. We're not teaching them obedience. We're instilling fear in them, or we're telling them, that you can't trust me with growing, right? With developing, and so there are times where, as an individual, I have to look back so that, I can improve, which is what you want from generation to generation is, keep the stuff that was good and that worked, but challenge some of the things that maybe didn't, so that, you can evolve, and so as I do that, there are times where, you may come across some areas where you're like, yeah, they definitely fucked up on that, yeah, they definitely dialed it in on that, and if I'm speaking honestly, my mama was someone that was very hands off, right? Like as it relates to checking homework and, just being very active in that regard. But it was because my older sister was a straight A student. Okay. She had a what do you call it? A subscription to the Wall Street Journal, right? That's what she asked for her 6th grade year for Christmas. Erica asked for a briefcase. They got a leather briefcase with her initials engraved in it, and a subscription to the Wall Street Journal, and some money so that she can invest in stocks. Like this was my sister. She was never the bad kid. She set up and read. She was, very kind of self-contained and to herself. Some might have called her a tomboy, but she was athletic, so she liked to play it up. Now, it was funny because majority of the time she got in trouble. She got in trouble because she did not fit into the identity of the typical girl, right? She wasn't the girly girl, right? Beautiful, adorable. She wasn't a girly girl. You know what I'm saying? She used to play for varsity basketball. You know what I'm saying? So, that was a thing. Yeah, and so because of that, And then me just coming up, I was super smart, but I was not, I did not apply myself. That I wasn't disciplined, right?
Yeah.
And, my mother wasn't, because my mother isn't super disciplined, there oftentimes she kind of took her hands off the wheel. Now, she knew how to discipline me once that first marking period grades was fucked up. And, then the punishment ensued. And then I would figure my shit out from the pain of punishment, right? So that was her method of me figuring it out. It was like she created for me the space to figure it out on my own. Now, did that create some elements that I maybe had to deal with? Yeah, it did. But then it also made me independent, right? And I was a kid that also learned to like freedom. And so I understood that being self-sufficient gave me more autonomy, which is what I desired anyway, right? And so in that instance, yeah, I can look back on it and say, yeah, there have been some areas I probably would have been more developed in and just kind of the whole nine. But I think that what I often challenge, and this is, when I saw these comments, the thing that kept hitting me in my mind is, it's like the butterfly effect. I don't know if you remember that movie with what's his name? He used to be on that show where they would Punked. I can't think of his name. Used to date Demi Moore. Funny. Ashton Kutcher, thank you. Where the premise of the movie was just basically how small things, down the line can have dramatic results, basically, right? And so, for those of you I haven't seen the movie, he would go back in time trying to correct little things that he thought was the issues with his childhood. And every time he went and made some tweak, on the onset, it might have looked like shit was better. It turns out it was way worse than how it ended up being, right? And so, my mind thinks like that sometimes. Like I'm making the assumption that if things had been differently, that I would have turned into a better person. You know what I'm saying? Now, I do think there is such a thing as like straight up and down, like neglect. Like your parents ain't, giving you food and, resources and you just got to fend for yourself, because that does happen. That does happen. And in those moments, that is, I can't begin to talk about just how that hurts my heart, right? That anybody has had to experience that. But then there are other moments where it's just like, okay, yeah, your parent wasn't perfect and they didn't know the perfect way of how to develop you. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes those circumstances is ultimately what makes you who you are. And so I think sometimes like I struggle with that. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of like trying to balance wanting to improve upon things and, acknowledging that was something that could have been better, but then saying to myself though, but yeah, I like, don't put yourself in this space where you just assume that raising children successfully is a byproduct of just making all the right decisions, right?
Not at all.
Because that to me can be very limiting in believing that you can right decision your way into your child never fucking up. You know what I'm saying? Or your child never having something that they have to grow beyond, some obstacle unbeknownst to you. You know what I'm saying? And so, I don't know. Like I said, like some of these comments, I'll just run through a couple of them. This one right here, I saw, this was interesting. So a woman responded, "First daughters, please rise." To which she responded, "I feel for you, but I'm actually last born." Crazy, right? All right, I'll come back to that one because that to me gave me insight. Parents don't understand how hurtful it is when they assume that their strong, independent children don't need as much support. And I think that that's very honest, right? He says this verbatim. To me, it sounds like I didn't parent you because I noticed that you were already parenting yourself. Like I was a child. All of these are real. My mom said this, and I resented myself for learning to ask for less, if anything at all, at such a young age. Now that's powerful, right? That was one of those moments where I was like, damn. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean by when I say like this particular thread, it has so much value. Like not even just the pain, but just the awareness of how an action has the capacity to affect so many different people, so many different ways. Another one said, "I'm curious." Now, this was a gentleman. "I'm curious why this made you sad. As a dad, I hear him saying that he was confident in your ability to face challenges, right? Now that's a man. So here's another one. Felt in that dynamic, it has always felt like an excuse for parents who did not have the tools or the bandwidth to support me properly. I do not know how to adequately support you spiritually, emotionally, financially, psychologically. So I'll pretend as if you're so strong and well-adjusted that you can somehow, without any tools, do it all by yourself, even at 10, even at 13, especially by 17. Now that you're an adult, what could you possibly need for? What a joke. Just a few more quick ones. Literally, my mom's words were to me, oh, I put you in those positions to make sure you were independent and never needed to overly depend on me. I wasn't ever worried about you and what you were doing. That changed my entire perspective on her after all these years of me being forced into hyper independence and not understanding why I'm wired this way.
Wow.
That was deep. What about when you find people who do start worrying about you, you kind of push them away or feel uneasy about it? That's powerful, right? In terms of just how this affects so many people. Now, this was my response, right? I said, this is, and just so y'all can know why I'm still in this woman's content. This was such a poignant and profound thread worthy of an elaborate discussion. I completely understand the emotions you shared. As an adult, I grapple with those thoughts at times, questioning how differently I may have evolved if my parents weren't as hands-off. But I always end in a stalemate because I can't guarantee that I'd be better in any way. My youngest brother was coddled by us all, and as an adult, he resents it because he feels inept in some areas he desires to be more independent. To which she replied, thank you, and yes, it is worthy of an elaborate discussion. I think a lot of people who have commented can benefit a great deal from continuing to pull the thread on their feelings surrounding this. So I'm glad I shared this thought here. Initially, I was on the topic of friendships with my other friends. With my other threads, but this made its way out of me. It's not a feeling that overstays its welcome because I have a clearer understanding of my own parents now, but sometimes it appears and I let it. And I thought that was really profound for her to just even acknowledge that, right? That there are times where she feels it and she allows herself to feel it. And I think that I was really glad that she actually responded, right? Because I was like, I did not want to say anything that undermined what it was that she was feeling. But as I pointed out, when someone assumed that she was a first child and she said, no, I'm the youngest. So then that got my mind thinking all kinds of other stuff, right? Did your parents also go a little handoff because they had other people in the house that was also helping to raise you, which is a part of parenting. There's no way that the youngest gets parented the same way. This is just life. As much as we want to pretend that we just gonna dish it out evenly, it's like the way that life moves is it's like you move in the areas that you either know need it or that makes it clear that it needs you. And there are times where in doing too much, you end up stifling someone if really what they were supposed to develop was independence. And like I said, that's why I use my brother as an example, because like as an adult, there are times, man, where he has vocalized to us a bit of a resentment because he looks at his older brother, he looks at me, he looks at Erica, and he sees the way that we move. And I think there are times where he just feels unable to be able to tap into that thing because he feels like he wasn't required to, because he had all of this protection. But as an adult, you get no protection, right? At that point, it is up to you to figure it out. And so like, I think that's why I was like, yeah, this is a very interesting space, to talk about, but not just from I want to give people space to feel that way, but just to say like, it's also worth it that you challenge yourself in some instances to make certain that you are not beating yourself up about something that may have actually been essential to your development. And like I said, not something where it's like pain or, like there are certain things that neglect leads to, like, children being molested, and things of that nature. So I'm being very clear that I'm not painting with a broad brush and saying that this is everyone's situation. But I do think that there are times where those of us that may not have suffered some severe traumas growing up, but just, everything wasn't perfect. And now that we are mature, are we overanalyzing our childhood to a degree that we are not giving it its proper credit, right? For just being what our spirits needed karmically in order to progress, and that is me going on some real esoteric ass shit, because I believe in that. I believe in karmic debt. I do believe that our lives in many cases are playing out karmic debt. I also believe in reincarnation, just to be clear, right? So there are times where it's like, they say you believe in reincarnation and you believe in like energy and that it doesn't die. It's like there are times where things are happening to people in this incarnation, and what we may not know while in this incarnation with them is that they are working through some karmic debt that they had coming. Now, it doesn't mean you don't be compassionate towards them. It doesn't mean that you don't be empathetic towards them, but it does mean that you don't pity them, right? You're not supposed to pity anybody because you don't know what karmic debt they are working out so that their soul can become more whole. You know what I mean? Like, and depending upon how they navigate this particular experience is going to determine whether or not they can move beyond it, or whether or not that's a lesson that they have to get again, And so, again, like, I know I'm kind of getting really into a more spiritual way of looking at it, but I can't help but to sometimes, because of the fact that when we start to really get into the inner workings of the mind, in therapy, I think that sometimes we can, like I said, think that we can make all the right decisions. And then that just means that we just naturally become this whole person without understanding that sometimes like suffering is a part of life, right? Suffering is a part of life. And that's not something that is easy to articulate, because then it makes it seem like you're saying, oh, just leave them there. And I feel like sometimes that's what the Republicans do, right? The Republicans are like, oh no, they'll figure it out. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. You know what I'm saying? And that to me is where they end up incurring more karmic debt, because it's like, nah, you're still supposed to have compassion. You're still supposed to be empathetic. You're not supposed to pity them, but you are supposed to attempt to help. You know what I'm saying? But in many cases, a lot of times this change does come from how we are perceiving whatever it is that we're experiencing, But yeah, I mean, that's what I got on that particular topic, So
it's deep, man. She brings out an element that there's one thing I did want to highlight from what you just said, and that is the reference that I brought up about the therapist that I have been seeing about the inner child.
Right.
My therapist gave me a book, and it's called Inner Bonding. Becoming loyal, becoming a loving adult to your inner child. It's by Margaret Paul, PhD. And one of the things that she highlights in that book is like, again, yeah, you were hurt as a child and you were let down by the adults that were in charge of you at that time. All right. But the reality is that you're an adult now, and it is now your responsibility to speak to whatever that inner child needs in a healing way. And that is what we call we've talked about before, somebody doing their own shadow work, doing that behind the scenes vetting of, am I okay? And if I'm not okay, what do I need? And how do I speak to those wounded parts? And then ultimately, how do I, continue to make a decision that I'm going to win wounded, that I'm going to fight through the rest of this life as a wounded warrior, knowing that the closer and closer I get to the end of my life, the closer and closer I'm getting to the whole person that I was designed to be.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, listen, brother. Man, as always, man, it's not only been a pleasure, right? But like, I always look forward to this, and I appreciate the fact that we're starting to make more of a habit of it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Because I mean, it's just for me. I hopefully the people that watch it get as much value from it as I get. I know on some level they have to, because I get value from it. And anytime that I'm feeling value from something that I am participating in, I've been fortunate enough that those people that I connect with also see the value in it. And so, you know, you are someone, man, that from the first moment I put that first bat signal up, and you were, you know, one of the few that saw it. It was like short notice, but you jumped in, man. I am really glad that you responded, because, you know, this was something that I did not have in my bingo card, you know, for 2025. But it's dope, right? Like, and that to me is one of the things that's just fucking awesome about life, when you really can tap into not only the present moment of life, but really tapping into the possibility of infiniteness, right? Like, you really don't know what is over the horizon, right? And I think sometimes we can get, you know, you said something earlier where you were talking about like a friend of yours that you said that sometimes he can express those nihilistic views, you know, and just your awareness of like not wanting to surrender like your mind, right? Like in that regard of just your state of mind, and just that like giving up in that regard. And I totally agree with you in that regard. I know it's hard. I know that it's difficult, man. And I know that this stuff comes on us like an onslaught, but that has been something that I have been challenging myself with almost daily, like fighting for appreciating the moment, fighting for gratitude. You know what I'm saying? Like forcing myself to give myself the permission to see the beauty in moments sometimes, man. I might just be driving somewhere, man, and it's early in the day or whatever, like as the sun is rising. And normally I might have to be pissed that I got to go somewhere this early in the morning. And then just for that moment, I'll just look at that sunrise and I'm just like, damn, that actually is kind of beautiful. You know what I'm saying? And then force myself into this whole gratitude space, you know, and what I'm trying to do is see if I can extend that, right? I'm getting stronger with it. And because I'm getting stronger with it, I'm starting to learn that, damn, that actually is a muscle, right? And the more I work on this eventually starts to color more of your life than what we're seeing, you know, online, and just sometimes what it feels like the world is pushing you, right? Like I'm attempting hard to tap into a different frequency. And like I said, these conversations for me is one of those moments where, you know, it's a download period. And so thank you, man, for like, you know, continuing to participate in this, man. Before I wrap, I want to give you, you know, an opportunity to just, you know, share your final thoughts.
Man, like with that, everything you just said, the only button I could put on that is this is why hope is so important. You know, that one of the key things that we know is that there are not many promises that we're given in life, but the ones we can be assured of is hard times and death, right? And so because of that, it's important for us to make sure that we put joy, strength, and courage and hope as the antidote to all the despair that we're facing right now. Society is very easily going to make sure that it does its job at tearing us apart. But if we can continue to keep hope and keep faith, I'm confident that that will be the equalizer to help us all endure through everything we're facing, man. So the feeling's mutual. You know, I never would have thought that I would be having the opportunity to reconnect, and the reconnection happened on this platform. But as I alluded to earlier, is that this platform has its own purpose, and it has to be here for this time and this moment. And who better than you to lead that? So kudos to you, man, and thank you for the space as always.
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah.
So, man, with that being said, man, I'm gonna build with you later.
Peace.
All right, y'all. Once again, this has been an exciting episode of The Script. I'm gonna take a moment as I wrap because there was a little thing that I did want to talk about, and I think that the way that George closed out that last piece actually was very meaningful to me, and actually it was very touching. And so, thank you, brother, for sharing that. It's one of those things where I think sometimes people, they see you, they see how you move, and even you can feel confident. I know we all do this, but my love language is words of affirmation, and it's even while that's my love language, people don't realize like how oftentimes on the path you really aren't getting the affirmation that you either require, desire, or that other people think you're getting, right? And I think that is also a byproduct of even with just we were talking about in terms of sometimes people thinking that because you're the strong one that you don't need to be checked in on, because people think that you don't, they don't tell you, because people think you got it under control, they don't attempt to help, and I think that because when you are an independent person, you are trying to do everything within your power to progress, whatever that progression looks like. But the reality of it is that nothing of value typically is accomplished without some meaningful help in some sort of way, right? No man is an island unto himself. And so, it does become important, man, that we acknowledge one another, right? And that we give one another, our flowers, as we say. And so, I'm very appreciative, once again, to even be able to not only speak with dope people like George, but to even be able to communicate with you guys, right? Like, I don't care what size this is at this point. There are some weeks I can see the numbers spiking a little bit, other weeks maybe I didn't promote it right, whatever, what I'm saying? It's still beautiful to have the capacity to be able to show up, right? And I don't want anyone to ever feel like I take it for granted. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is something that is incredibly pure and beautiful about the space that I'm at right now. And that is one of the reasons why, as much as you got these goals, right, and these visions, and you want to progress and you want to move to the next level, I really am trying to, as much as possible, just be in a space of gratitude and appreciation, right? And so, I'm incredibly appreciative of blackdoctor.org for, extending me access to their, bandwidth, right? Because many of you all that are watching right now are watching directly through their platform. I do want to encourage you to follow me on my personal channels, whether it be This is Isaac Paul on Instagram or the Tequila Tales on YouTube, just to make certain that we stay in the know. I would love to believe that I can maintain this relationship with them, indefinitely. And I don't see any issues right now, but Stephen Colbert probably thought that he was going to be on CBS for a couple more years, right? So you never know, right? You never know. So I'm saying that to say, if you enjoying me, tap in, right? Tap in. Don't be bashful with the shit. Like, y'all need to tap in as many channels as you possibly can, because not only does it ensure that I can continue to, add value, or, we can stay connected, but it also lets me know, Ike, I'm feeling this shit. Because trust me, at this level, that's what it's all about. You know what I'm saying? The props, the internal shit means a lot more than I think people recognize. Like, they'll see you do the live shows, and some of them are successful and shit, and they don't know. Nigga, sometimes just coming up and just dapping me up and letting me know, I think you like that shit. For me personally, it means a lot. Now, this is my little final opinion that I want to share with you. I want to show y'all something, right? Because sometimes you can learn big ass lessons through very small things, right? And I'm always that person. I'm always looking for, the purpose or the hidden meaning in something. Like, man, what was that really about? You know what I'm saying? And something happened recently, man, that, it feels petty. I'm gonna be honest, but really it's not, right? And initially I contemplated whether or not I was gonna share this, but when I realized the reason as to why I wanted to share it, I was like, yeah, this does become important. So y'all check this video out.
That's one of the things that I think a lot of times boys need is not just exposure to one guy.
Mm-hmm. One dad.
No matter how good the dad
is. He can't be everything.
He can't be everything. And that boy may need somebody to give the boy some perspective on the dad.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
One of the most valuable things I learned as a guy was I had a gay professor in college at a time when openly gay folks still weren't out of line, who became one of my favorite professors and was a great guy and would call me out when I started saying stuff that was ignorant. You need that to show empathy and kindness. And by the way, you need that person in your friend group so that if you then have a boy who's gay or non-binary or what have you, they have somebody that they can go, okay, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah.
Right. So in kindness. And by the way, you need that person. And
okay. So you've obviously seen this clip. We've just played it, but I want you all to look at the post, right? So Waka Flocka decided to comment on it, and he said, kids, never let this fool and deceiver Omara tripping, and y'all agreeing with this. Okay, it's Waka Flocka, right? But there was a page that, is one of those like Black culture pages that, decided to post some content and wanted to, engage people with what they felt Waka Flocka said versus what the president said. So I want to just kind of show what the question was. So the question read, hold on one second. Waka Flocka shares his thoughts on Obama's statement that boys benefit from having more than one male influencer in their lives. What are your thoughts? So, I see this and I say to myself, what do you mean? What are my thoughts? Right? And most people that were responding to the content on Threads, they kind of tapped in. They were sharing their thoughts. And essentially they were saying like, man, Obama's got a point. Like, have you ever heard of things like it takes a village to raise a kid? Like most people that were tapping into it were, looking at it at face value and waging inside of the discussion. Now, you guys may not like where I took this. Okay. So forgive me. I made there times I'm an asshole, right? Not intentionally, but there are times where I'm an asshole. So, maybe you all may not agree with my perspective on it. But this is what I had to say, right? My thoughts are, why are we asking sane people whom we think is more credible, a former Black president of the United States that is a Harvard graduate and brilliant, or a nigga named Waka Flocka? I swear, as a culture, we got to stop doing this. We're losing the war on reality one post at a time. Now, those were just my thoughts, right? I'm on Threads. It's tongue-in-cheek on Threads. I'm not attempting to like strip your soul or whatever. It's a page that on Instagram got over 100K followers and on Threads had over close to 40, right? So, I'm just mixing it in like everybody else. This is like Black Twitter back in the day or whatever. I'm sharing. I think this is a dumbass question, right? Like, what do you mean? What do I think? The nigga's name is Waka Flocka, and he supported Trump 10 toes down and constantly said a bunch of ridiculous things the entire time. Like, why are we trying to even create this argument as if we are comparing apples to apples or even fruit to fruit, right? Like, what are we doing? We are wasting our time. Now, I posted that. Yeah, I was on Threads way too late. It was like in the wee hours of the morning. I was working on something. Boom, did that, and dozed off for a little bit. Not on purpose, but maybe hour and a half. I look up. This thing's got 400, likes, and people are commenting on it. The original post only had like 190, right? So this particular post had more engagement than the post itself, right? Which means that a lot of people were agreeing with my sentiment. And then under it, they started commenting. And then what I noticed was that I changed the entire tide of the kinds of responses that people were making in this comment section. So when I saw that, I was like, oh shit, because that was not my intention. I was not attempting to stage a coup. You know what I mean? I was not attempting to create a revolution on this Black culture page. I just thought it was a dumbass question, okay? And I was attempting to call it out. But if you look at it, so I said, okay, this is weird, but all right, it is what it is. I wake up the next morning and I see like maybe 2 other comments, but the trail had run cold. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it is what it is. But then when I click on it, if you look at Threads, and I don't know if you know anything about Threads, but if you look right there at the top, it says post not available, okay? Because these cats deleted it. They deleted it, right? I think there must have been a point, because see, I went to bed. So who knows at what point they deleted it? They might have looked up and my comment might have had 1,000, 1,500 likes up under it. And I might have been staging just an all-out assault on them as a brand. And they decided to do damage control wisely. They wisely decided to do damage control, and they deleted that dumbass post. Now, the only reason I was able to show you the actual post is because on Instagram it still exists. Because there was no one in the Instagram thread that said anything. There was no similar movement, right? So it made me chuckle a little bit. And I said, boy, I swear, man, people know they ain't shit. You know what I'm saying? And I get it. I ain't salty. It would have been fun to have seen like how far it actually went. Just for my own vanity and for my own hilarity's sake. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not sharing this to be like, yo, look how I did this. It's funny to me in hindsight because it's like, oh shit, I really made them, delete the tweet, basically, But I had a bit of an epiphany. And the reason I had this epiphany is because, I shared a moment ago that it was not my intention to be a disruptor. It wasn't my intention to stage a revolt. It wasn't my intention to influence anyone's decision and persuade them in seeing things my way. I was just sharing how I honestly and authentically felt, regardless of whether or not that was what they asked for or whether or not I was being petty. I used my voice in that moment and shared my true self, my real self, my authentic self. And as a result, 1 person agreed, 10 people agreed, 100 people agreed, and possibly 1,000 before it created change. And so then it got me to thinking, man, I see a metaphor here, right? How many of us right now believe that we don't have power to actually enact change? How many of us right now believe that because you're just one voice and you don't have a big following, that it doesn't make any sense for you to be vocal? I'm just one vote, right? I can't change the outcome of the election. I'm just one data point. I got to have a whole community. I got to have 1 million followers in order to be influential. A lot of y'all are a lot more influential than you give yourselves credit for, right? Because sometimes it is quality over quantity. And you never know the rippling effect that your authentic self will have on the world. So maybe for a while, we need to stop paying attention to the algorithm. Maybe for a while, we need to let go of the metrics and stop quantifying our value through likes, shares, and engagement. I've been saying this, and I'll continue to say it, that it is a war on reality. We are in the middle of a war on reality. And this isn't just about AI and VR and politics. It's about whether or not you are going to live your authentic self. Because everything in this world is going to attempt to get you to be fake, to get you to play the game, right? But that's not always where you're the most valuable. And even if you win, is it a goal worth having? Oh, yeah, I got everybody to pay attention to me for this period. Everybody likes me, but you're not really showing them who you are authentically. You know, I think that there's something very powerful when we start to show up as our authentic selves. I think there's something very powerful when we feel confident in sharing how we feel, and not necessarily with the intent on changing people's minds, but just because your voice actually matters. I think that that's part of what's wrong inside of this virtual world, is that many of us, the sensible ones, right? Many of us, the empathetic ones, many of us who are led by love, we've taken the back seat and we allow everybody else to be vocal on these platforms. And so for those impressionable people that are trying to get a gauge on who they should be and who should lead them, if they got 40 options and 39 of them are grifting, there's a point where you start to believe the grift. You start to believe this is life. This is the way, right? And that's only because those of us that know better are conceding. We're giving them that space. We are not showing up, right? And so that to me is where I was like, you know what, man, I kind of want to end it on that note, because one of the things that is so frustrating to me right now, and I've said this really since the election, man, is just the fact that everybody is walking around acting like this shit is normal, as if it does not bother you profoundly. And I know that, you know, you got to protect your mental health and the whole nine, but everybody ain't protected their mental health. Some people are really just detached, and some people are just apathetic. They really don't believe that sharing their thoughts is going to create a groundswell where other people now feel encouraged or motivated by you being your authentic self. Now you've given me the courage, right? Now you've given me permission to be my authentic self, because the shit is contagious, right? The more people that start to show up as their real selves, man, you give other people the courage to be their real selves. Because when they see you being unapologetic, when they see you standing up for something that's virtuous, when they see you standing up on truth, right? And just calling out the bullshit, not being afraid of it, it starts to encourage more people. And so kudos for all the people that are doing it. And I'm not saying that you got to get on social media and turn into a content creator, but I think there are a lot of people that are biting their tongues right now and they know better. They're just going along with it. You got racist people in your family and you're not checking them on that, right? You got misogynistic homeboys and you let them get away with a lot of bullshit, man. And we not calling it out. We not doing like Shaq did last week, where he told RG3, yo, you got one more time, man. You got one more time. When I be talking about circling the wagons, this is what I'm talking about, man. Because if we are not defending our own, if we are too scared to defend our own, who else is? Right? So, you know, that's all I got, y'all. That's all I got. But, you know, like I said, it's just small little message that had the capacity to change the tide. And in that moment, I said to myself, you know what, man, how many more small messages can change tides? You know, we just got to be prepared and willing to share those messages, right? To do those small actions and create whatever that butterfly effect could potentially be. But y'all, it's been a pleasure, man. It really has, man. And, you know, Yeah, every Tuesday, man. Every once in a while, you know, I might pop out, but man, lock in, y'all, because I'm telling you, man, the ride is just beginning. Yeah, it's going to continue to go up. But until the next time.